We're going to get started right away. We have a great turnout here. The itinerary today is I'm going to talk about 45 minutes on just team building, the basics. We're going to jump into some things like that. We're going to have Phil Scolari jump in after that. He's going to talk about LLCs and incorporating and why to do that and what's best to do for your situation. And then we're going to take a break, and then we're going to have Matt Stevens come up and talk about how to be in compliance with the IRS and get your stuff organized, what to do, what not to do. These are just brief synopsises of what you can do to stay out of trouble with the IRS. But those are two guys who need to be on your team. And then I'll finish it up, and we're going to go through like the last 45 minutes. We're going to actually look at probably about 10 properties, and we'll just go through each one. We'll look at pictures. We'll look at properties that I've purchased, properties I haven't purchased, why I've purchased them, why I didn't purchase them, why I passed on them, and then you guys will have questions. It's going to be a good learning experience. That's where I get most of my comments and likes is when we go through properties and we just look at stuff that I see every day and helps you guys assess a property a lot quicker. Okay. So if anybody needs to reach me for a question, my email address is alex@alexdeacon.com. I have business cards up there. alex@alexdeacon.com. Phil Scolari's put a bunch of stuff on each chair, so you should have always contact information. Matt, what do you have for everybody? Do you have cards or? Do you have, okay, so you have folders? Okay. All right, we've been doing these workshops probably about 4 years now. This is the biggest turnout we've had because I was doing them like 10 times a year. We reduced them to about 5 times a year. This year we're going to do 5. So we have 4 more. The topics are going to be, I haven't narrowed the topics down yet, but Saturday, April 18th. So we usually do these on the second Saturday. This one's going to be the third Saturday of April because that's Easter weekend. So we're going to do the third Saturday of April. We'll do Saturday, June 13th. Saturday, August 8th, and Saturday, October 10th. And those will all be posted on the MeetUp site probably 30 days in advance. Topics are going to be analyzing rental properties and flips, estimating ARV and repair costs, creative deals, zero financing, zero money down, leveraging time tools and team members, detailed desktop analysis. So we'll go in more detail of like how to assess a property online in your pajamas at home before you even get in your car, because one of the biggest killers of your motivation to continue doing this is to stop chasing rainbows and stop chasing deals that aren't good deals, because you'll get worn out and you won't want to chase them anymore. So I'm trying to keep you from burning out. So focusing on the top 10% quality properties, and then go see them and then maybe purchase one. And I was thinking of doing maybe, because we did one of these at Acre, which is one of the local groups, Acre and RIA. They did like a Shark Tank where we had a panel of 3 or 4 investors up here that are fairly heavily experienced, and we did like a Shark Tank where people would bring their own deal, and then we would assess them and we'd bid on them, and we would decide whether we want to go in partners with them or why we don't want to be partners with them. And I thought it was really good. So we might do something like that. I'd like to thank our sponsors. Phil Scolari, who's been a real estate specific attorney for quite a while. I don't know, 30 plus years. Where's Phil? It's way in the back. And Matt Stevens, who's been my personal accountant and my friend for over 30 years, my personal accountant for probably 25 or 26 years. And 2 of the best in the industry. So if you're going to build a team, those are 2 guys you want to have on your team and you want to talk to either after the session today, or you'll get their contact information and set up a consultation with them. And I want some help. If you guys could help us grow the membership to about 1,000 by the end of the year. Right now we're almost up to 800. So if you know any friends or family who are interested in maybe not attending but getting our regular emails, just have them join the group. You can also join our other group, which is the landlord workshop. So if you just Google Alex Deacon MeetUp, there's going to be a couple on there. One's going to be the landlord workshop. You can join that one also. There's much smaller. We have like 20 people, and we'll meet in my office maybe 7-8 times a year. All right, so let's get started. The reason we do these workshops is to help educate. When I help educate and help people, I tend to learn more because I'm a creature of habit. I tend to do the wrong things over and over again until I finally learn not to do them anymore. I'm not the kind of person who can do something once, screw it up, and not do it again. I'll probably screw it up 3 or 4 times, and then I'll finally get it.
I can attest to that.
So the best thing for me is to teach because it helps me because I'm helping others. It helps to solidify in my brain. Stop making the same mistakes you're telling people not to do. Okay, because it's very simple, like I said, to chase rainbows and chase the next shiny object. There's no easy way to get to where you want to get to. It's going to be educating yourself, surrounding yourself with smarter people than yourself, and hard work. There's no other shortcut. It's always the basics. It brings me back to the basics. There's no other important thing that I can hit home with is focus on the basics. There's no shortcut. There's no easy pill. If it's easy, it's not worth doing. So just keep that in mind when you see a deal. Like, for example, if you go out and look at 20 properties with an agent and you like all 20 and you want to make offers on all 20, there's something wrong. When you go out and look at 20 properties, you might see one that makes sense. So that's one gauge is maybe 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 20 properties you see physically firsthand. That's about the percentage that should be something you're interested in. If you're interested in 10 out of 20 or 8 out of 20 or 15 out of 20, you're not educated enough and you're just chasing properties you probably shouldn't be chasing. But one of my companies is Deacon Hoover Real Estate. So my partner Ian Hoover and we started this company about 2 years ago. We have about 40 agents. And we're looking for more agents, so whoever's licensed and wants to come over to a company that we've helped a lot of our agents increase their productivity and the amount of properties they've sold. We're actually #1 in multifamily homes sold. One of our agents, Jeremy, is in the room. He's in the back, and he has sold more multifamily properties than any other agent in the West Penn Multi-List, which is pretty awesome. And we have 2 more in the top 20. So we do focus. I mean, we can sell your single family home, the house you live in. We can sell you new construction, the next home you want to buy. But we do specialize in multifamilies and investments. Mace Property Management, that's a company that I started with my wife about 18 years ago, 2002. We manage over 700 units, and we're happy to help anybody that you may know who's managing their own properties. I always tell people managing properties, it's hiring a company to manage your property. It's not a necessity. It is a luxury. It's something I suggest that everybody who buys rental properties should at least try managing on their own first, just because it's good to know what the day-to-day looks like when you own your own rental properties. It's good to know that stuff. It's good to know because when you go and hire your own property management company, you're going to be more educated. You're going to be able to ask them certain questions, and you're going to know what the internal day-to-day looks like. So I think if you have a small portfolio, you should try managing it yourself. If you live out of the area or you're just very busy and you don't want to do it, I understand that. Just make sure you budget for it. You should also budget maybe 10% because management fees vary from 6% to 12%. So if you use 10% as a good gauge as far as budgeting when you're running your rental numbers, then if the property makes sense, even with a management fee in there, then you're good to go and you can go ahead and make an offer and move forward on it. We also have an affiliation with Terra Mortgage, and we also have an affiliation with Red Tree Mortgage. So they can help you with any sort of mortgage services, commercial, residential, it doesn't matter. They can do anything. If you guys need anything as far as residential financing, just shoot me an email. I'll get you hooked up with Alex, who's one of the owners of DHRE, and Jason, who owns Terra Mortgage Services. And then we also have our own title company, which is HD8 Settlement, so we can do any title work for you guys. All right. If you're probably not going to be able to read that, correct? But we'll zip through it. This is the ingredients of a successful real estate investment career. Is you're going to have a strong reason why you're doing this. So only you can answer that. Why are you doing this? Because if you don't have a strong enough why, it's not going to pull you through some of those times that you just want to give up. So because you're going to want to give up in many times, in many cases I have over the years, and I've stuck with it because this business, like a lot of business, is it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's going to take a long time before you see the rewards of your hard work and your efforts. And there's you're just going to have a good stick-to-itiveness about yourself. And the only way to do that is have a reason and a vision. Reason why you're doing this, and then a vision. And money's usually not a good enough reason. Money buys you freedom to do things, but money can't be the ultimate reason. It's usually not strong enough to pull you through why you're doing it. If you'd rather sit at home and watch Oprah, I don't know, does Oprah still have a show? Whoever's the next Oprah, if you'd rather sit at home and watch Oprah instead of going out and looking at properties, you should probably think about not doing this, because you're going to have one hell of a work ethic, okay? And if you'd rather sit and watch Oprah, then you're going to have to find a partner who likes to do the work, and maybe you're the person who wants to come up with the money. So just for example, I partner up with a lot of different folks. Some people in this room I've partnered up with. Some people in this room have actually become private lenders for my own personal projects. So just keep that in mind. If you guys have a project that might be a little too big for your britches, or you might want to partner up with me because the first couple deals are a little tough, I'm happy to look at any deal. And sometimes, I tell you what, 9 times out of 10, probably 19 times out of 20, I turn down the opportunity because they're usually not good deals. So even if you run it by me, I can tell you, well, this is potentially a good deal, but this is the downside, this is the upside, and are you going to be somewhere in the middle, or are you going to be happy with that? Because I always look at deals like, what's the upside? Okay, the upside's here. What's the downside? Can I live with the downside? Then I'm moving forward with it. So if my risk, it's all about minimizing risk. There's always going to be risk in some shape or fashion, and you just have to know what good risk is and what bad risk is, and you just have to weigh that. That's going to come with time, but it's all about managing your risk. So, and the upside, and all that good stuff. You have to be learning based, so constantly learning. That's why you guys are here. Who's also members of RIA or ACRE? By show of hands. Does everybody know what those are? Those groups? If you don't, you can Google RIA, which is the Real Estate Investment Association of RIA Pittsburgh. I think if you Google RIA, REIA Pittsburgh, Josh Caldwell runs that group, and he has probably, I don't know how many members. Phil, how many members do you think Josh has?
Probably about 700, 800. They usually get about 150 to each meeting.
Yeah, they get 150 people plus to each one of their meetings. They meet in the North Hills once a month. And then ACRE is the American Congress of Real Estate. ACRE meets every first Tuesday of the month in Green Tree. And they probably get about the same, 150 to 200 members. You're going to learn a lot from that group. You can not only learn, but you're going to network with people. I was talking to someone earlier, and they said we were talking about networking in these groups. And these are relatively small groups. But you can network when you might find your next deal here. You might find a partner here. You might find an electrician or a plumber here. You might find an accountant or an attorney here. So pass your cards around, network with everyone in the room. You never know where your next deal is going to come from.
What does ACRE stand for again?
American Congress of Real Estate. They tried really hard to make ACRE or an acronym work, so they came up with that. So be learning based. Be nice. You don't have to be a jerk and a cutthroat to succeed. And you never give up. All right. Your real estate IQ is going to be something you're going to be constantly working on. What does your real estate IQ consist of? Give me some examples.
Knowing your math.
Know your math, know your numbers, right?
Knowing everyone.
What was that? Know the market. Very good. Well, those are two really good ones. Knowing the numbers and knowing the market. If you don't know either, you're going to be behind the eight ball. What's that?
For neophytes, we have to rely essentially on a realtor to know the market, right?
I mean, with the internet today, you're going to have to rely on an agent, but you can get a lot of information online now.
Okay.
But there's only so much you can get online. It's amazing what you can do online now. I mean, with Google Maps, and it's insane. But you're still going to need to know the neighborhoods, street by street. You know, like there's areas over in the east. I don't know the east real well, like East Liberty and Wilkinsburg and things like that. But there's areas in Wilkinsburg that are highly desirable, and then areas that are highly undesirable. You know, just like McKees Rocks and Sheridan and the West End, and it's a street by street specific area. That's stuff you can't really learn online. You got to know that market, and you're just gonna have to drive the market, see what's going on, track what's sold, what hasn't sold, database everything you've looked at. You know, and you're not gonna be able to do all that in a lifetime. You're gonna have to rely on other people. And those are agents and other investors, and so that's building your team. We'll get to that. Opportunities and deals at bats are critical. If you don't have enough at bats, you're not even going to get a chance to swing at the ball. So you're going to have to look at a boatload of properties. I mean, just hundreds and hundreds, probably monthly, at least online. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, just imagine hundreds and hundreds of properties. That's probably what I look at I probably look at 100 properties a week, I'm guessing. You know, things come across my desk either from wholesalers or agents or on the West Penn multi-list, or people that just know I buy real estate, so they call me or they send me something. Other investors. You're going to have to look at lots and lots of properties before even getting in your car and going out and looking at them. Yeah.
When you say you look at deals, are you like underwriting the deals, or are you just saying, hey, this, like, I know the submarket and I know that, like, based on this price, it's a little bit over, and so I'm gonna I'm not even gonna.
That's what I would do. I would look at, like, I'll get at the end, we're gonna go through about 10 or 15 properties that I've been emailed from wholesalers, because I'm on their list. Who's on a wholesaler's list right now? A lot of people. You need to get on. There's probably a jillion wholesalers out there. There's a lot. You need to get on all their lists. Okay. You need to get on their email list, and occasionally you'll find a good deal. But I tell you, a lot of them are overpriced. Just like whatever's on the West Penn multi list, it's no different. You're gonna have to assess each one, whether it's from a wholesaler or for sale by owner or whatever. Yes, sir.
I was going to ask you, where do we go to look for those lists?
Go to RIA meetings, acre meetings, maybe Google Pittsburgh wholesalers. It's going to be networking. Yeah. There's a Facebook. Yeah, there's a Pittsburgh investment Facebook page. There's a couple of them now. Does anybody belong to any of the real estate investor Facebook pages? Yeah, there's quite a few in here. So if you Google that, there's a couple bigger groups out there. So, and you'll be able to eventually grow that database of wholesalers. Yeah, but at the end, we're going to go through about 10 or 15 wholesale deals, and I'll show you the pictures of the properties. And you guys will be able to chime in and ask questions too, because there's a lot of properties like that pop up. Like I'll get an email from a wholesaler about one in Newcastle. I don't buy anything in Newcastle because, one, I don't know the market. Two, it's too far. Three, I don't have enough hours in the day to learn the market. So I just literally would pass on that one. And that's what you guys are going to need to get good at, is knowing what to pass on and knowing what not to pass on, because otherwise you just run out of time. And if you don't have your time organized, you can't make quick decisions, you can't make offers, and by the time you get to the property, it's gone. Because has anybody made offers on properties recently in here? Has anybody not got the property? Everybody who raised their hand. Yeah, it's super competitive right now. So you have to be just one step ahead of the next guy. You have to be that much quicker. And the only way to be quicker without making mistakes is knowing what you're looking at and knowing how to assess properly and knowing how to manage risk. There's so much to know. But this is just step one. Building relationships is super important in team building. What are some of the people that we could have, or who do you want on your team? Let's just start with some answers. An accountant. Does anybody know a good accountant? I don't, but we have Matt here today, so. Who else do we need?
Attorney. A good real estate agent.
Banker.
A bank. Okay, so we have accountant, mentor. Let me go to the mentor thing because a lot of people want me to help them, and there's not enough hours in my day, unfortunately. I'd love to help everybody in here, but that's why at least this gets you started. If you need something from me, just you send me an email. I'm able to help a lot of people via email. Hey, Alex, can you take a look at this? And I can, if I know the area really well in about 5 seconds, about 5 minutes or less, I can assess it and shoot you an email and let you know what my thoughts are. But if you find a good mentor, you're going to need to offer something to them, because I'm busy, and anybody who's successful at this is typically very busy, right? So, how do you get to have somebody like that help you? You're going to have to offer your time for free. You're going to have to do something. You're going to have to stand out above the crowd to allow them allow you, access to their day. If I could have 10 minutes with some of the Shark Tank folks, right? Anybody watch Shark Tank at all? And the Prophet with Marcus Lemonis. Does anybody ever watch that show? Yeah. I'd love to spend a day with those guys, because you would learn just an insane amount of data. You could it'd be ridiculous. But I'm not going to be allowed into those guys' lives. They're echelons above where I want to be. So not that I'm up here, but I'm just saying most guys that are very successful aren't going to allow you into their lives. They're just too busy. So there's only so many hours in the day for me. I'll do my best to help you guys. But if you can find someone who's very successful, and not just BS successful, but successful. Like, I don't consider myself very successful. I'm like maybe a 5 on a scale from 1 to 10. There's guys and gals way more successful than I am. I just happen to be fairly good at what I do, okay? But I'm not perfect. So the things I teach you are just things that have worked for me and then things that have not worked for me. So you can learn from what I've done and what I've failed at and what I succeeded at, and then take that and learn from someone else, and then you put all that together, and then you have your own database of what you're going to do in your business model. An attorney, super important to have someone who you can bounce legal questions off of. These two are the most important, the accountant and the attorney, and they should talk the same lingo and they'll work together, because what you do here sometimes affects this and vice versa. A good real estate agent is critical. I think probably more than one. Like, we have 40 agents, so if you need someone to help you find a property, just shoot me an email and I would direct you to the person who knows that specific market Like, I'm not going to send you to Jeremy, for example, if you're looking for properties over in the east part of Pittsburgh, you know, because he's typically, you know, not in that area, but we have agents over that way. So you might want to get agents that are geographically specific and other agents who are market specific, like maybe they just sell multi-units or they sell a bunch of them, and have about 2 or 3 of those guys on your team. Who else can we have on our team?
Structural engineer.
Yeah, a structural engineer or a home inspector.
You didn't write down contractor, right? And so under contractor, there's a whole lot of sub-people that you might want.
Just remember one thing, guys. These guys aren't going to work for free, and that's the problem that we have. Is contractors have a rough gig. You know, they get a pretty bad grade for most people, but they got it rough because, you know, when you call them, you want these estimates for free, and you're going to beat them up and blah blah blah. I mean, would you want to go to work knowing that I'm probably going to work for free today? I'm probably going to not get paid. You know, I'm going to get screwed. I'm not going to get my last payment on this. That's what contractors have to deal with. On the flip side of that, there's a lot of jerks out there. So you got to be careful that you pick the right contractor, but you need to pay them. You know, you pay them for their time. You're not going to get somebody to work for $20 an hour anymore. That's insane. I mean, I'm still on $20 an hour as a good living, but it's not. You're going to get a good handyman, a good one, who's honest and fairly quick. I don't know, $40 an hour, you know? There's no one going to get in their truck for $20 an hour. Yeah, you're going to find them. You're going to find the drunk guy who just, you know,
Yep.
you're going to find maybe the illegal alien. You're going to find those guys. But you're going to be babysitting. You're going to be, you know, worrying about is he stealing your watch? So it's real important to know this because you need to budget accordingly. I don't know how many times I do a project. I'm always under budget. I always go over budget. Always. And I've been doing this forever.
So did you do a statistical analysis of how much you're over budget so that you could, here's the Alex Deacon correction factor? I'm an engineer, so I look for things like this.
I need to get better at adding that contingency of real. But that's so true because I'm an optimist, you know, and I want to see things work, and I'm driven, so I tend to make numbers work, and it gets me into trouble sometimes, but so be it. All right, who else do we need on our team?
I think a structural engineer. Oh, you have that as
Yeah, inspector. That's all lumped into one.
Okay. Handyman.
Marketing manager.
That's a good one. Someone.
Yeah, once you own the place.
Yeah, a handyman, someone who can do your marketing. So if we'll get into that. We'll talk about another 10 minutes, and we'll go into that. Handyman, marketing. Why would you need someone for marketing?
You can advertise your properties.
It can be a full-time job in itself.
So marketing, we have advertising their properties,
Branding, communication.
branding. What else?
Social media.
Social media. But why do you need, if you don't, other than marketing your rentals or your for sales, why do you need marketing?
To bring deals to you.
Yeah, right, to help you find the deals. Because that's one of the critical aspects of being in business is if you're an accountant, if you don't have clients, you could be the best accountant on the planet. You're going to be not very lucrative in your business. You could be the best dentist if you don't have any people that want their teeth fixed by you because they don't know about you. Boom. If you don't have deals, you don't have at-bats, you don't have opportunities to write contracts, you don't have a business. So eventually, Eventually, you're going to have some sort of marketing. I've never done marketing before until recently. I've just started to do like mailers and texting and email technology, all that stuff. We just started doing that because it's coming so competitive. So let's look at where, but does everybody see where our team is important? Okay. And I was talking to someone earlier about contractors. Who's a good contractor? That's a tough one, man. That one, it's like your accountant and your attorney, your real estate agent, those tend to maybe stay a lot longer as a part of your core team than contractors, because they just tend to, they unfortunately, it's human nature. They start out very good, their prices start out very good, and then they start to get very busy, and then they start to not be good. And it's just a common thread that I see. It's a cycle that, so finding a good contractor is awesome, but just remember that's probably going to be more of a revolving door. Not necessarily true. I mean, I have a HVAC guy I've used for 20 years. I have same plumber that the past 8 years, but you always got to be watching those numbers too, okay? Because we give a lot of volume to these guys, and they should therefore give you a break too. All right, we'll look at one more thing, and then we're going to take a 5-minute quick break, and then we'll have Phil come up here. Just keep in mind, it's the weirdest thing. They have 2 bathrooms out here, and they're only 1 toilet in each bathroom.
So dumb.
So if you got to pee, make a dart for the door before anybody else does. There goes Phil. I mean, there's a couple bushes out here too, but it's really cold. Hello.
I just want to circle back to the contractor thing for a minute. Do you typically subcontract to a general contractor who then finds the plumbers, the electricians, the framers, or do you go straight to each of the trades?
I'd love to have the general contractor. In fact, we do, my partners, I have multiple partners. One of my partners have a GC who does everything for them. And it's a little more costly, but it allows you to grow. When you're first starting out, you're probably going on GC everything if you have the time. The problem is GCing everything, general contracting everything is you're managing the whole project, and if you don't know what you're doing, you might be getting in the way. Yeah, I do a little bit of both. If I had my preference, if I could find a really good GC and maybe give them some ownership in helping me keep the costs down and keep the thing on budget and on time, then I'd rather do that. Okay? All right, so where do we find deals? Where have you guys have bought properties, or you've been looking, where have you found your deals? Okay, the MLS.
Facebook Marketplace.
I'm listening.
Craigslist.
Craigslist, okay.
Sailors.
Driving.
Did you say driving?
Driving.
Just driving?
Yeah.
Talk to your current tenants.
Driving. Oh, wholesalers.
Word of mouth.
Tax delinquencies.
About foreclosures.
How do you find the tax delinquencies?
That's what done it. Courthouse.
Go to the county
Sheriff's
website.
You go down to the county courthouse and get the information from there.
I think it's online too.
It is, yeah.
Okay, so I'm hearing you can go to the county courthouse, you can go to sheriff's sales, you can go online somewhere. Okay. How about Mortgage foreclosures, sheriff's sale, where else would you, how could you?
Online also, there's a website, Allegheny County Foreclosures. I haven't used it yet, I don't know what the price is.
And then what do you do once you find those tax delinquent or those mortgage foreclosures? Maybe pending foreclosure.
You'd have to skip
Go
trace
search.
number, correct? Try to find out the contact information.
Correct,
The
yeah.
owner.
So you need to find the owner to reach them and say, hey, I want to help
Yeah,
you get out of
can
here.
get the tax delinquency before it's at the sheriff's sale.
Mm-hmm.
You can find the ref, you
Right.
see a house you're interested in, you look it up on.
So
the
you want to
county
find
website.
anybody who's in a situation where they need to unload. Divorce, estate,
Yeah,
behind on their taxes,
yeah, we're testing probate this year.
probate. So you can get all these lists. I know there's ways you can get this list. I have another couple that I'm working with, and we're direct marketing to all these avenues. You can't go all of them. You just got to pick some because it costs money to do this. We're going to spend probably a couple $1,000s a month just marketing to try to create leads, because they're harder and harder to come by. There are some of the wholesalers out there that I've heard that spend, I think, $10,000, maybe even $20,000 a month just mailing out thousands and thousands of postcards and using technology and using virtual assistants to call and follow up. And it's a massive, massive business, but you don't have to grow that big. You only need a couple. If you had, how many would like just 2 really good deals a year right now? Yeah. That's all you need. You don't need to spend $20,000 a month.
One thing we're thinking of doing is we're interested in some properties on the street that we already own a house on. And I checked the ones we're interested in, they're both tax delinquent. We're gonna just write them letters
Mhm.
asking them if they wanna sell. So that's really
Yeah.
the cost of postage.
Absolutely. Yeah, stay close to, so that's one of the classes we'll do is how to really hone in on your market. If you stay close to home, it's going to make your time management that much better. You can't be everywhere. So stay close to home or close to where you work, or like some sort of radius of where you want to be, based on your income, based on how much you want to spend too. You're not going to be looking in, I'll get to you in a second.
This one's gonna sound awful.
Good.
The mailman.
Oh yeah, the mailman's a great one. The mailman, the utility guys who are shutting utilities on and off. Talking to neighbors, like we do. I have partners and we go to sheriff's sale once a month, and you're constantly just talking to neighbors and they're filling you in with what's going on. Sometimes you knock on the door. Hey, what's going on? You're losing your house. What do you want to do? I can help you. Some people don't like that. They don't want to admit it, or they don't want to be bothered, but you have to open up a little bit and get out there and start asking people, the mailman, your grandma, whoever, somebody knows somebody who wants to sell a house or needs to sell. Any other ideas?
Just word of mouth, basically letting anybody you know that you have a conversation with that you're in real estate.
Yeah, just a magnetic sign on your car. I forget, there was a woman in here, she had a magnetic sign in her car, and she got a couple deals last year. I'm like, dang, just from a $20 magnetic sign.
Like a We Buy Houses
Yeah.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say, do you count bandit signs as
Yep.
something like a lot of municipalities
Anything.
let you do that?
Anything that's going to show people that, hey, I'm buying houses. I'm in the market. So the MLS, Facebook Market, Craigslist, just driving around. What were you looking for when you're driving around? What are you looking?
Unmowed lawns, dilapidated houses.
Yeah, we did our first mailing like a month ago. We spent about probably $2,000 last month. And we got a lot of leads. It's going to be a lot of follow-up. It's going to follow up, call me in 6 months. Whatever. It's going to be a lot of follow-up. Some of these leads might not materialize for a year or longer, but that's the real gold is in the follow-up. Okay, the first call is usually not a slam dunk, but it was through driving around. My partner saw a for sale a for sale sign, older couple. I don't know if they know what the internet is, but they had a for sale sign in their window. And we actually picked up a pretty good deal just from a for sale buy. It's not even spending $1.
Morning, everyone. My name's Phil Scoleri. I'm president and owner of Scoleri Law Group, and we do business and real estate law. We've been doing that for, let's see, I've been practicing for, Alex, you were close. I've been practicing for 36 years, so that means I graduated from law school when I was 10. I'm just a savant. I'm just a boy genius. Again, our firm does business, concentrates a lot on real estate. We have a lot of real estate investors. I see clients in the audience here also. Just a little bit about myself. I started out doing all types of law. I did divorce law, personal injury. I even did a few criminal cases. Got smart, got out of that, found my niche with real estate, started with an attorney who did real estate closings, and I found out, boy, this is fun. This is easy. And for the past 20 years, in addition to my real estate and title work, I also do, I've concentrated mostly on business law, creating businesses of all types, but a big concentration with real estate, especially since I have a lot of real estate clients. So I do a lot of that. Alex asked me today, well, first of all, I want to thank Alex Deacon and Deacon Hoover Real Estate for putting this on. It's amazing. 80, what did we have, about 80 people here today? Great, congratulations. Everybody came out in this cold weather. I've been up since 3 o'clock because my dog's sick and my dog had to go out again and again and again. So if I'm jumping, it's because I had 5 cups of coffee already. So Alex asked me to talk today about asset protection. And it's not just, what I'm going to discuss is asset protection, not just for real estate, but for any type of business, because they're all about the same. But again, you could always get into real estate, different avenues for real estate later on. Because every business is different. Every business is protecting different assets. And so, there's always different vehicles and different tricks for every type of business. But there's certain general principles that you all have to know, no matter what type of business you're in. So whether you're a contractor, you own a restaurant, you own a beauty shop, the basic concepts of asset protection and structuring your business are pretty much the same as far as what you do. It's just how you do it. So the first thing you have to determine is what type of business are you protecting? And I know a lot of us are all real estate investors. Most of the people in here are real estate investors. But I'm sure a lot of you also have other businesses or came from other businesses. You might be a contractor, as the gentleman in the back I spoke to. You may have a restaurant. You may have some other type of business. So each business has its own unique asset protection, but you also have to start out to know, what do you need? It's not just walking in and saying, let's start this type of entity or let's start this type of entity, because they're all different and they all have different factors that help you in what you want to do with your business. For example, I do a lot of work with construction companies. Now, sometimes you'll start a small construction company, and they may start out as an LLC, because that's all they really need for their asset protection. But as they grow, they may need other vehicles to protect their assets, and they may want to diversify their assets. So as a construction company grows, they may own a building. So they want to put that building maybe in a different vehicle, different asset protection entity, in order to separate the building from the business. So if one goes bad, at least they have the other one. And as they grow even more, I do work with heavy construction companies. Sometimes they'll take all of their equipment and put it into a separate company, because the equipment has a higher liability threshold. You have a big truck, gets into an accident, you're digging a ditch and you break a pipeline, so you have different liabilities. So you try to structure them based on your business. So again, it's all on how your business is set up and how you want to structure it and what you want to do for those different businesses. The example I always use is stock. If you had $1 million, more than likely you're not going to buy just one stock. You're going to diversify. You're going to put some money into maybe high risk, because you're going to get more money, put some money into medium-sized risk stock, and then you put stuff into bonds and something that's more safe, so that you're diversifying it, so that, again, if one domino falls, it doesn't kill everything. So again, one of the biggest things with asset protection is find out what your needs are and then work your way from there. And the second thing I want to talk about is building a team. And Alex talked about building the real estate team. And that's great. That's a great start. That's the most important thing to do, is building your team and knowing where you have to go. What I always tell my clients when they first sit down is, you know what, every team, every business, no matter how small, how big it is, there's always 4 building blocks to every team, at least from my perspective, that I look at. The first one is having a good attorney. When you find one, you call me, I'll hire them, and then we can let them work for me, and we can do that work. But yes, you need to find someone who understands your business, and that's what Alex discussed before. Your team has to understand what you need, what your business needs are. So if you're in the real estate, you're not going to go hire a family law attorney. You could, they probably could help you, but they're not going to help you as somebody who does business law or maybe real estate. Same thing as if I have somebody who calls me for a family law issue, I'm not going to do that work myself, even though I probably could. Because you want to find somebody who understands what your needs and what your duties are, what you have to do to protect yourself. The second and probably most important thing is having a good CPA, good accountant. Because as Alex said, the attorney and the accountant, they have to work together. They have to be on the same page. If I tell you to set up one type of entity and your CPA says, no, the way what you own, what you have is not good, it doesn't make any sense. They're fighting and you're just wasting your money. And I learned many years ago that having a good CPA is the most important thing. And not all accountants and not all CPAs are created equal. When I first started in my own practice years ago, my ex-partner and I, we had a person doing our taxes, and they were fine. They put the numbers in, and we paid our taxes. Well, I found out after about 4 or 5 years, well, my wife did, because when she got the tax bill, she said, "What the hell are you paying all this for?" I said, "Well, what do you mean? That's what the tax guy said." "Well, is there any way we can save money?" And so I talked to other tax people, and they said, "Well, because your business, they had it set up as a C corporation," and that's all tax stuff and Matt can discuss later. But they set us up as a corporation that I didn't need. So again, find the CPA who fits your needs. Make sure they understand the type of business you're in, whether it's real estate, construction, whatever it may be, because the tax laws are different for many businesses. I mean, you have basic tax laws, but as Matt can explain to you, different industries have their own little niches. There's their own little deductions, tax benefits that you can use. So again, that's the second most important. The next 2 items are insurance, and people will say, "Hey, I just go find an insurance agent." No. Again, make sure that they understand your business. Getting back to the construction company, this one large construction company I represent had someone do with your insurance. They had their policy. They thought they had everything done. They were sued because one of their pieces of equipment knocked down a building. Well, guess what? Because they didn't have the certain endorsement or rider in their policy, it didn't cover them for knocking down that building. So $150,000 later in settlement and another $50,000 in legal fees, they had to pay all that off because, again, their insurance people didn't know. So don't just think that insurance is insurance, because it's not. They have to understand what your needs are for your particular business. And lastly, and maybe one of the more importantly, is finding your money. Where are you getting your money? Is it coming out of your pocket? I mean, you'll listen to real estate people talk to you, and any business person talk to you about setting up entities or starting your business. And the big thing they tell you is, OPM, other people's money. So again, find bankers, maybe 1, maybe 2, maybe 3. Make sure they're like a business banker. I mean, you have your banker who does your checking and savings accounts, but find a banker who can lend you money. Get those lines of credit. Make sure you have the assets to build up new assets and build up other assets without using your own money. So again, the 4 building blocks are your CPA, your attorney, your insurance agent, and your banker. Now, after you get that basic team, then you work on the other things, depending on your industry. Getting the real estate agent, getting the marketing people, things of that nature. So again, make sure you have that, because without starting out the team, you're not helping yourself out later on. So now that we have a team, and you've talked to me about what type of business you want, what we need to do, how we need to structure it, now we have to find a vehicle for your business. We have to find an entity. And there's 5 or 6 basic entities that you can have for your business, whether it's real estate or anything else. I'm going to talk about them a little bit in what I consider my least favorite to maybe the best and most popular. The least favorite, and mind you that just because it's my least favorite doesn't mean that people don't use them and people aren't successful with using these types of entities or business structures. It's just that from my point of view, the cons outweigh the pros for that type of entity. The simplest ones are a sole proprietor. You go out, you buy a house, you put in your name, boom. It's so simple. Sign a contract. I don't need a lawyer to help me. I don't need anyone else to help me. I don't have to form anything. I don't have to do any kind of structure. Put the property in my name. And along with that, you have general partnerships. Me and my buddy go out and buy a house. You put in 50, I put in 50, we buy the home. We're good. So simple, nice and simple. And I have clients, against my best judgment, who have hundreds of properties in their individual name. And they tell me, well, Phil, I've owned all these properties for the last 20 years and nothing's happened. Yet. You even said, yeah, you knew that. You should be up here talking. Yet. Again, sure. I mean, everything's good. You can buy, you could have bought Enron stock and it went up, 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 up. But then when that yet came and you had all your money there, it was gone. So again, sole proprietorships, general partnerships, they're simple, they're easy to put together, very little documentation, very little need for an attorney to actually put any documents together, except maybe a partnership agreement. Well, here's the problems. With a sole proprietor and a general partnership, you have full liability. You own the home. You and your partner own that home together. Someone sues you. Someone falls. Anything happens. You have a tenant who doesn't like you. Who are they suing? They're not suing some blind entity or some unseen entity. They're suing you individually. That's the first thing. So they're getting personal liability against yourself. Secondly, they know your name. You buy something in your own name, they know who you are. They know where you live. They can find you any way they want to. I have clients who do own a lot of, whether it's any type of business, even especially real estate, who tell me, don't worry, Phil. My insurance agent said I have a blanket policy, I have an umbrella, everything's covered, no problem. And I tell them, I say, you know what? Sometimes if it hails hard enough, your umbrella breaks and you're getting hit on the head. So again, just like my construction client, don't assume that all those policies are going to cover everything. There's some unforeseen things that they may and probably don't cover. So again, when that happens, you're personally liable. So they come after not only your assets, but all the other assets that you own in your own name. So again, it's not just that property that they're taking. They can come after everything else that you own. The other thing with sole proprietor, people are going to say, oh, I hate sole proprietors now. You can't do anything anymore. The other problems are you also have issues on asset transfer when you're transferring those assets for estate planning, for asset protection for family later on. Those become more difficult because there's a limit on how you can transfer and what you can transfer them to in order to protect yourself and maybe use it for estate planning or succession planning. And then the last item, and again, I'll allude to Matt later on, he can discuss those things or he can talk to you about them separately, is tax advantages. There are, I know enough about tax law and the IRS law to get myself in trouble. I can be very dangerous what I say in some of those things. But again, there's tax advantages to having an entity as opposed to having property in your own name. What type of tax returns you file, which you can or cannot claim. So again, those are things that you have to look at whenever you're looking at those types of entities. The next item I want to talk about, reluctantly so, is most of you people have probably been to real estate seminars and what have you, and you hear people always talking about land trusts and business trusts. And everybody thinks, ooh, those are nice things to have, okay? Up until about 15, 16 years ago, I probably formed more land trusts than anyone around. We used to do that. That was kind of a vehicle that we used to use because of the anonymity. You didn't have to file them. You didn't have to do anything with them. Unfortunately, about 15, 17 years ago, the PA corporation law changed, and they changed the way they treated business trusts. Okay, they have a separate article in the corporation law for business trusts. It's a trust where you hold business assets or property assets in them. The one thing they made those companies do is, A, not only paying the taxes, but also registering. So under the law, if you have a business trust, and we take that as attorneys, or at least I do, we take that to mean that land trusts also. Anytime you have a business or a land trust, you have to register that with a state, just like you do an LLC or an LP or a corporation. It's required by law. If you don't, you could be subject to, I think it's still a $1,000 fine if you don't file those with the state. So what it does is it takes out the anonymity. People used to set up these little trusts, and then some of the things they did with those trusts, and we can always discuss later, was transferring the beneficiaries. They figured, oh, it's cool. Let's just change the beneficiaries. We don't have to do anything. What you're doing there is you're probably cheating the state out of transfer taxes, cheating them out of tax fees, transfer fees. So again, those are things that people still use. I don't think I've structured a land trust probably in 15, 16 years. Because once the next two items I'm going to talk about, the LLC and the limited partnership, once they came into play, there was no need to do a land trust. So again, that's the second item that type of entity that we talk about as far as asset protection. Again, it's still used a lot, and it has some benefits, but again, you have to follow the rules. And if you're going to go the step and follow that with the state, do all the registrations, you might as well set up a regular entity. So the next, we talk about the big three, the main entities that most people use for owning businesses, asset protection. And that's the corporation, the LLC, and the limited partnership. Corporations. So corporations have been around since the Mayflower. I guess they've been around since the 1400s, corporations. And corporations are nice, and that's probably the only mode of entity that you probably could use for the last, up until about 20 years ago. I mean, that's the one main entity that people used. And corporations they're good and bad. You see corporations with, quote unquote, the big corporations. People have a lot of stocks, they're on the market, things of that nature. They're mostly corporations. The benefits of the corporation, and I can probably tell you that I've probably only formed in the last 10 to 15 years, maybe 8 or 10 corporations, whereas I formed probably about 15 to 20 LLCs and LPs a month. So that's how little people use corporations. And the problem with the corporations is, well, give me the advantages. The one good thing about corporations, if we're starting up a company and you want asset protection, the nice thing about a corporation is because you have stock, you can always add stock. You can always elect to have more stock in the company. And it's good for a company that wants to grow, expand, go nationwide or do something like that. It's always good to have a corporation because there's a lot more you can do with that from a tax and from a legal point of view. Most of us in here aren't probably ever going to set up a corporation. Some of the specific industries sometimes are construction companies. They'll use corporations because of the way they need to borrow money and get bonded and things of that nature. The problems with corporation is that in addition to, so corporation, LLC, and LP, you start the same way. You have to pay a filing fee with the state. You have to file it with the state. With a corporation, you have to do your articles of incorporation to file with the state. And then you also have to have bylaws. Your bylaws for a corporation are basically your owner's manual. The bylaws tell you what you can or can't do, who the president, who the officers are, whether they can borrow money, how they can borrow money, what they can buy, what they can sell, anything that they can do. So if it's not in your bylaws, you can't do it. I want to go buy this. Well, the bylaws say you can't. So again, your bylaws are your owner's manual to how you run a company. The problem with the corporation is it has become cumbersome. And so, the cumbersomeness of the corporation is that with every corporation, and you only have to be one person to form a corporation, but with a corporation, you have to have a president, you have to have a secretary. So even though you're one person, you have two titles. That's stupid. With a corporation, even if it's a one person, you have to have annual meetings. I'm going to meet with myself. Hello, how are you? Hello, how are you? Okay. And in those meetings, you have to have a shareholders meeting, and the shareholder has to elect a board of directors. So you sit there and say, yes, I want to be a director. Yes, thank you very much. And then the directors have to elect the officers. So, yes, you can be president. Oh, yeah, you can be also the secretary of the company. Well, that's stupid. And that's what the problem was. So many people were forming corporations because that's all you really had to use as a vehicle, that people just weren't doing it. They weren't following those rules. So how's that? So you can't protect your assets because the problem you have, if you don't follow those rules, and I can probably tell you that out of 100 corporations that you'll find that are sole members or even two-member corporations, probably 75% of them don't do annual meetings. What's the big deal? Well, the big deal is if you don't do those meetings, you don't follow the rules, again, your bylaws have rules. If you don't follow those rules, you could be subject to what's called, anyone ever hear of piercing the corporate veil? you're subject to Pearson corporate veil. What's that mean? Well, with these entities, the LLC, corporation, and LP, you have limited liability. You're limited to the money you put into the company. You have no other liability unless you do something illegal or malfeasance or something like that. You're protected from any of those items, except if you don't run the company the right way. If you're not running it the right way and you find an attorney who's suing this company and finds out that you didn't have your minutes, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, they're piercing a corporate veil. I mean, you have certain rules that you have to follow. And if you don't do that, you can go right through the company and sue those people. So again, corporations started going out of favor about 15, 17 years ago when the new LLC law came into play. And the reason is that they were cumbersome. In addition to filing, like you do everything else, you had to advertise it. So you had to spend another $250 to advertise your corporation. You had to advertise it in certain newspapers. You also had to get a corporate seal. You had to get shareholder certificates. You had to do all this stuff, get a corporate minute book, have meetings every year. And if you didn't know how to handle your own meetings, you hired an attorney, which was good for us, but not good for anyone else. Because we were making money just to sit there and say that you elect you, you elect you, you elect you. So again, corporations, again, a nice vehicle for asset protection. They still have their purposes, and they do a lot, again, depending on the type of business and what your structure is. So once we get past corporations, we come to the two most popular, two most common, and probably the two best vehicles for any business, whether it's real estate, construction, a bar, restaurant, no matter what you have. And that's the limited liability company and the LP. Limited liability company came into place because single-person corporations were tired of having to do those little stupid things every year. And the LLC is a little bit different. You have a lot of the same protections as a corporation does, for the most part, liability, limited liability in those senses. But what it does do is it makes it simpler. With an LLC, you file your certificate with the state, certificate of organization, and then you have a members agreement. Your members agreement, just like your shareholders agreement, your bylaws for a corporation, that's your owner's manual for the company. So that tells you how to run the company, who can run it, what can happen. You don't have to have all those different officers of the company, all those, yes?
The same thing as an operating agreement for your LLC.
Isn't that what I said? I said members agreement, huh? Yeah, operating agreement for your LLC is your owner's manual, excuse me, yes. So you have your operating agreement. I keep getting this mixed up. You have your operating agreement for your LLC, just like you will for your LP. So your operating agreement, again, tells you how to, as the name suggests, it tells you how to operate the company. And with an LLC, as opposed to having directors and officers and all that, two forms of running your LLC are either manager run or member run. Member run is if there's one member, two members, three, the three members get to run that company. They make the decisions and you have it spelled out in your operating agreement. If it's a manager run, one of the members can pick one of the people to be the manager, and that person has the authority to run the company, perform all the different acts that the company allows in the operating agreement. And that manager doesn't have to be a member of the company. You could always pick a third party to be your manager if you want to. So again, with the LLC, it's very simple. You don't have to have annual meetings. You don't have to do any of that other stuff. So it makes it a lot simpler. From a taxing point of view, I think you can elect a lot of the same things as a corporation. So again, from a taxing point of view, that helps you also. So again, shareholders agreement, operating agreement for the LLC. Again, very simple, tells you how to run everything. And with a limited partnership, it's a little bit more diverse. That's actually a very good vehicle. The limited partnership is another entity formation. And that is actually a lot, I use it a lot for people who own real estate. What an LP does, it's kind of a two-tier type system. So limited partnership, you start out a limited partnership with a general partner. The general partner runs the company. The general partner, as the name implies, has general liability. They have full liability for the acts of the company. So typically a general partner of an LP is just another LLC or another entity that really doesn't have much assets. And then the limited partners will own the balance of the ownership of the company. It's typically the general partner will have a 1% ownership interest, and your limited partners will have 99% ownership interest. And as the word implies, limited partners are limited. All they do is have money in the company. They have no say-so in the company, how it's run. Pretty much the only say-so they really have, in accordance with their operating agreement, they have the ability, if they get together, to get rid of the general partner and pick a new general partner. But because they have limited say-so in how the company's run, they are totally limited in liability. They don't have anything, they don't run anything in the company, they don't sign anything, they don't make any decisions. So that's always good for limited partnership. It's always good if you're bringing in the real estate world, if you're bringing in other investors. So if you have a project, Alex gets you a wholesale project, you work with him. You might work with Alex and be a limited partner. You have a limited partnership, owns the piece of real estate. He owns so much, you own so much, but your general partner runs everything. So again, it protects everything underneath. Yes?
So the limited partner brings the cash, and the general partner is the owner of, is pretty much just the
Right.
operator of that.
Operator of the company, right. Right, exactly. So again, so you have that protection there. So that's, again, another asset protection is you have the limited partners. Again, it's good for people who are looking for investors because as a general partner, you get to have the whole say-so in the company, but they get to, the general partner is the one who runs everything, and the limited partners can put in cash infusion, and that's their share. That's basically their shareholder stake. Now, all these companies, the LLC and the LP, they have members' interests. They don't have stock. So a corporation, you have stock certificates. You can issue 1,000 shares of stock, okay, and then you can only give out 500. So you have another 500 that you can sell to other people. That's why with corporations, a lot of the bigger companies use corporations because they can always add stock. They can always bring in investors that way. With an LLC and an LP, you're limited as to the percentage of ownership. You know, obviously, you can cut down the percentages to like 0.5% or 0.25%, but again, you're kind of limited to what that ownership interest is. So again, that's good for asset protection. Those are the two that I use the most. Again, corporations are very rarely used anymore. It just no need for them. It just doesn't make sense.
Can you run through a couple more examples of general partnership and a limited partner and what those look like? Just some more examples.
Well, I would draw. So with real estate, Alex was talking about one of the things I use it for most for my investor clients for asset protection is you'll have a general partner. So in Pennsylvania,
There's a pen up there.
yeah, but no one's going to be able to see it. So, so for example, in Pennsylvania, the only people who can manage real estate are the realtors and the owners of the property. Okay? So I've had people who tell me, well, you know what, I have this LLC that owns this property, and I have this LLC that owns this property, but I own both LLCs, so I can manage that one. This LLC can manage that one. No, you can't. You are the underlying owner, but technically, the owner of this company is the LLC, and the owner of this company is the LLC. So by law, you're not supposed to manage it. Now, I know people who do that, and you're not allowed, so if a real estate agent calls you on that because you're managing the property, you can't do it. But what you do if you want to do that, what you may want to do, is that's where the structure of the LP and the LLC and the GP come in. So what I tell clients, if you're going to buy multiple properties, what you do is you set up a general partnership that doesn't, we will draw. So you'll have a general partnership, okay? And then you'll have a limited partner. So what you do is you go and buy a property. You buy the property, you put it in, because the owner is the limited partnership. So you buy ABC LP, buys a property. The general partner runs this company. So what you do is you set up this GP to have its own checking account, escrow account for security deposits. So the rents that come in here and the security deposits, they're managing because they are actually an owner of the LP. They're a 1% owner of the LP. Understand? Again, it's not the people inside it. It's this company actually owns 1%, and these LP owns 99%. So you may have companies where you buy a couple properties, you put in this LP. This company is managing them. A couple of things that it does is it protects you from liability because, so if the general partner doesn't rent to somebody, discriminates or what have you, okay? They're going to try to sue both, but the GP is the one who actually is the one who discriminated against them. So what they do is they sue the GP. Well, what do? As the LP, you say, you know what, I don't like you, GP. I'm going to form another GP to take your place. So you get rid of them. Okay, so that's a nice thing. What it allows you also to do, because, as we said, only owners of companies can manage a property. So what you do is you have a couple properties in this LP. Guess what? You want to diversify. You set up another LP. Do the same thing.
So these general partners have their own LLCs and their own corporations?
Yeah, so the general partner is typically an LLC.
Okay.
Doesn't have much in assets because all it's really doing is managing. So the money flows up here. They manage, again, no different than a management company. They manage some of the properties. They can do, again, you do it for, if you have a few of them, if you're getting really big, again, I always recommend a management company because it gets cumbersome. But the money flows in here. They can get paid a fee if they want to, and then they flow all the rest of the money back down to the LPs. So that's one of the big things for LPs that we use it for a lot.
That JP is, or LP, is that considered a holding company?
No, it's actually a kind of you can call it like a management company. It's an owner. So the LP is 100% membership interest in an LP. 99% is owned. So you and I own you and I and this GP own the company. You own 49.5%. Is that right? You own 49.5%. I own 49.5%. This GP owns 1%. So you and I are the owners here. We don't have any liability because we just put money in. All we're doing is collecting our profits at the end of the day. And this company, because it's an owner, we hired this company just to manage it for the LP. So they're managing the property. So again, LPs are nice for that type of situation. So those are the different types of entities. I know. Hey man, how you doing too? Yeah. Okay. Because it's asset protection, I have a few other little ideas and things that I use and I talk to clients about as far as asset protection vehicles. So some of the things that I always talk to clients about are, well, before we get into it, the most important thing with whether you have a corporation, because this always happens, corporation, LLC, or LP, when it's more than one person owning that entity, you have to, if it's a corporation, you have to have a shareholders agreement. If it's a LP or a LLC, you want to have a members agreement. Those agreements are separate and apart from your operating agreement. Your operating agreement just tells the world. That's what you give to the seller of the property, the buyer of the property. That's what you give to the banks who want to know how your company's run. You give those documents to them. It's just a general overview on how the company's run. But a members agreement, buy, sell, or shareholders agreement, that's what says how you and your partners treat each other. So, because the biggest problem I see, and I'll give you a quick example, the biggest problem I see are people who don't have a members agreement. And so what happens if one person wants to get out of the business? You don't have anywhere that says what happens. How do you buy them out? Can you buy them out? Do they have the right to sell to a third party? Do you want if you and I are limited partners, do you want somebody to sell do you want me to sell my interest to somebody you don't like? No, you want an option. If you don't have a members agreement, you don't have those options. You can't tell these people what to do. It happens all the time. What I get mostly is people set up an LLC or an LP and they tell me, oh, don't worry, we're buddies. We're okay. Nothing's going to happen. 5, 10, 15. I have one just called the other day. It's a corporation, 3 owners. The main owner owns 70%, 2 other owners own 15%. The main owner is 86 years old. There's no succession plan. If that guy dies, guess what? Those other 2 who are looking to buy the company, they have to deal with whoever you put in his will. There's nothing in their agreement that says, I can buy the corporation from you for X amount of dollars. You know, that's where we get into other asset protection vehicles. Life insurance policies. Have something like a key man insurance in your business so that if one of your partners dies, that insurance is paid to the company that allows you to buy out their stock, so pay off their spouse or their kids or what have you, pay off their estate for that money. If you don't have that built in, now in this company, it's a $5 million company. These guys don't have $4 million in cash to buy out that family. That's assuming they let them. So again, asset protection. Protect your asset by having those agreements, sitting down and making sure those are in place early. Don't wait until the company grows so much that you're kind of out of luck at that time. So life insurance policies to help do those things. You know what? Another asset protection vehicle is transferring assets to your family, your children. You know, setting up whether it's a revocable, irrevocable trust to put assets into, or limited partnerships. With a limited partnership, what's nice, sometimes you can transfer some of those assets to children or maybe into a trust, so that what you're doing is you're foreseeing the future. You can set money into a trust, still get the benefit of the income from those trusts, and then again, when you pass, it goes to your children, tax-free, inheritance tax-free, probate-free. Boom, it all goes. Again, that's asset protection. Asset protection is not just not getting sued, it's being able to move your assets and move them in a certain way that the biggest problem is not getting sued. Biggest problem is how much taxes are you paying at the end of the day? This gentleman will help you. He'll tell you how you can do it so you're not paying that much in taxes. I can do some of it, he can do some of it, but working together, that's the key at the end of the day. Lowering your taxes and preventing yourself from liability. Other things are some of the simplest things people don't realize. Using IRAs and 401ks. You know what? You know, every year, $15,000, $18,000 or $7,500 a year, IRAs and stuff like that. I mean, the rules change. 71, yeah. And if you're over a certain age, you can put more. But you know what? There's actually, depending on the type of entity you have, you may be able to put more money into an IRA or 401k. SEP. Right, so you know, putting money into those type of vehicles, people say, well, yeah, but then I can't touch them. But guess what? You know what? You can't touch them until a certain date. Well, you can, but you have to pay a fee. But the key thing is, nobody else can touch them. Most people don't realize this. 401ks, IRAs, IRS can't touch them.
Whole life too, right?
Well, that's insurance. We'll get insurance. But the IRAs or 401ks, IRS can't touch them. Bankruptcy court can't touch them. You get sued, creditors can't touch them. You know who can touch them? Your spouse. So guess what? You get a good divorce attorney. Get a prenup. But they can't touch that money. So you're, again, people don't realize you put that money away, you move that into those different vehicles, they can't touch them. So again, make sure, and in Pennsylvania, one of the nice things about Pennsylvania is what's called an entirety state, tenants by the entire state. Husband and wife are considered one person in Pennsylvania. So if your assets are in yours and your wife's name, no one can touch them unless they see you and your wife, or you and your husband. Being sexist, okay. If it's in joint names and if it's in yours and your spouse's name, you know what? Creditors can't touch them unless they sue both of you. That's why I always recommend when people are setting up LLCs or other entities, put them in your name so that they can't come after. If they do get through the corporate veil, they can't get after those assets. So again, just make sure you do all those assets. A couple other things, a couple banking things. Give me 2 minutes, Alex, because these things are, people just don't realize some of these things. So, you know, why have an entity? You know, most people don't realize this. So when you go borrow money from a bank, first of all, most banks, almost all banks, won't look at you as far as having to be on a loan, looking at your credit. I mean, all banks are going to want you to sign personally, whether you're a corporation, LLC, or what have you. All the owners, except if the owners own less than 20, typically it's 25% of the entity. So if you have somebody who wants to invest money, but they have lousy credit, if they're less than 25%, the bank doesn't care about them. They only want somebody who has majority credit in there. The other thing you always have to look at when you're dealing with a bank, again, another asset protection thing is when you go to a bank and you borrow money, and you borrow it with your LLC or LP or corporation, the bank is lending the money to the corporation or the LLC. Your corporation and your LLC are the ones who are making the note. They're the ones who signed the note. So if the money's lent to ABC Corp, you sign it as president or what have you of that company. The bank's going to make you guarantee that. And you keep thinking, oh man, I got this debt on me. No, you don't. Because as a guarantor of the note, you're not making it. It's not your debt. The debt belongs to the company. You're just guaranteeing it. What that means is if the company defaults on that note, the bank has to go and exhaust all the means to go after the company first before they can come after you. And secondly, if you go and borrow money the day after and you borrowed money, $1 million through your company, when you go to pull your credit, that debt doesn't show up on your credit report because it's not your debt. it's the company's debt. Whereas if you borrowed money in your individual name or a partnership, that's all on you. Okay? Those are just a few things that I always talk about. I also told Alex that because you people are so nice and it's his birthday, anyone who, we're offering that 10% discount for any new clients from this group, so I'll get your name so I'll know. So if you're lying to me, I know you were here. Okay? Any questions, or are we waiting for later?
We got 5 minutes of questions for Phil, any at all?
No, because I told them so much, they're confused now. They're sitting there going like, you know what? We do offer free consultations. I always like to sit down with the clients because people call me and say to me, you know what? I went to this seminar, I went to this, and I need to form 3 LLCs, 2 LPs, and this and this. And I ask them why, and 95% of them say because they told me to.
I'll add something, Phil. When you're going to do your entity selection, I mean, I do a lot of work with Phil's firm, and when someone comes to him and says, I want to set up this, and he tells them, they tell them what their business strategy is, Phil's firm will call me first and say, this is what they want to do, what's the best structure from a tax standpoint? Because all the entities that he talked about have different tax ramifications.
Exactly.
And for example, in an LP, if you're a limited partner, you don't get to take losses because you're not on the line for anything.
Right.
So you really have to understand what the business is. Is it going to create losses? Are you looking to take losses? Or are you looking to make income?
Exactly.
LLCs, there's no LLC tax return. You have to select how you want to be taxed.
Exactly.
So even though you want to be an LLC, I'm an LLC. That means nothing to me from a tax
Right.
standpoint. You have to make an election.
Yeah. Well, again, one of the questions that we ask on when people set up LLCs or LPs, we have a questionnaire. So look, you fill it out, the names, who's the manager, what you want to do, and then we ask. The next question is, how do you want to be taxed? And the question next to it is, please contact your CPA or accountant to ask them because I don't know. I mean, I know what normally is right, but I don't know what other businesses you have, what other entities you have. So, one person electing an S or non-designated entity, which is a tax thing, it might not be good for the other person unless you know what the tax ramifications are. So, that's again, the taxing, it's all about taxes. I mean, I can form any entity you want, but again, not knowing what else you own and how everything else is structured, it makes a world of difference because it lets Matt know what you can or can't do. What can you take losses on? What can't you take losses on? So.
You can keep asking questions. I'm going to set Matt up.
Two things I wanted to make sure to let you know too. We talk about asset protection and anonymity. Real estate investors, you don't want people to know who you are. Got it? You don't want people to know who you are. Okay? So one of the things is when you're setting up an LLC or LP, even a corporation, is when you file the form with the state, there's a place to have a registered address, okay? For most real estate people, I always give them the option. It's on my form. Do you want to give me an address or do you want to have me be what's called your registered service provider? And most people, I usually, if they're investors, I tell them, use me as a registered service provider because you know why? On the form that I file with the state, nowhere on that form is your name. It's your name of your entity, it's my name, and my signature. The only person who knows your name and your address is your friends at the IRS because we will send papers to the IRS to get your tax ID number, and they want your physical address. I can't fake that. I'm not going to use mine. So again, that's one thing. And with real estate people, I always advise them too. When you're buying real estate, again, for anonymity purposes, whenever people ask you on a deed for your certificate of residence, don't put your home address. Go get a P.O. box. I mean, I don't know how much it costs, but get a P.O. box. This way, your address is not on the deed. They don't know where you are. They can't find you. You don't want tenants to come. I've had clients call me and say, this tenant's knocking on my door because I didn't do this or that. Well, where did they get your address? Oh, well, it's on your deed. So, again, just a couple little points.
Do you guys work off a retainer or fee for service?
Fee for service,
What's your hourly?
$275. Mine, and then my partner and my associate are less. I don't do any work. What are you laughing for? You don't do any work either. Yes, sir.
So say you had like 50 properties in like 3 different LLCs, and
Yeah.
you wanted to start your own property management company and hire someone just to manage your own properties. Would you want to shift your LLCs into LPs and like make
Ooh,
it?
you know how much money that would cost you?
I don't know.
That's it. The problem in Pennsylvania is if you don't start these structures with the general partnership and the LPs underneath, if you don't start them up front, the problem with having like properties in your individual name, you want to transfer them to an LLC or something like that. You have to look at the cost benefit because you have to remember in Pennsylvania, anytime you transfer a property from one entity to another, whether it's you individually to a company you own, people say, what's my company? Doesn't matter. The state wants their money. They want transfer taxes. So it could be anywhere from 2%, or if you're unlucky enough to be in the city of Pittsburgh, it's 5%. And some people still do it because in the long run, if they keep it long enough, the tax benefits outweigh the cost. I mean, you can amortize your expenses over time or whatever. That's numbers. I don't understand numbers. But again, sometimes I have people who do it, but again, it can be very prohibitive cost-wise.
So would you just want to start a new LLC for the property management company then, and then charge your other LLCs like a
You
management?
can't unless there's an LP underneath. I mean, put it this way. People do it. You're not allowed to do it in Pennsylvania. Only people like him can do it because he's a management company. He has a license to do that. Now, if you were a licensed real estate broker and you set up your own real estate company, you could do it. Right, Alex? Gentleman in the back.
Yeah, good morning, Frank.
Hey, Frank.
Couple quick questions. If you already have your entity established, is there a certain time frame for you to go ahead and get the paperwork formed, or is it too late? You should set it up at the same time. That's one question.
Paperwork for?
Your operating agreement, how the business is going to be ran.
Well, I mean, technically, when you file your LLC with the state or your limited partnership, you should have a members agreement in place. My favorite clients are people who go on LegalZoom and stuff like that. I had a guy the other day who formed his own entity, where he thought he did, 2 years ago. He thought it was all filed and done. He said, I got an EIN number. I said, you know what? The IRS will give an EIN number to every one of you. All you have to do is fill out a form because they don't care because all that means is an extra tax return. So he thought he had an entity. He thought he sent the papers to the state. He thought he got it back correct. He was wrong. His bank shut down his checking account, froze all of his money because he did not have a legally formed LLC. He did not have an operating agreement on how to run the LLC. So until he could get that done, they froze his checking account. So yeah, you have to make sure it's done properly up front because if not, there could be, again, I don't know what the tax consequences were to him because that's between him and the CPA, but as far as legal consequences, yeah, his bank shut him down because they realized they didn't have the paperwork on file.
Okay, my goal today is basically to explain to everybody how important it is to have a good CPA, not necessarily know the code, but to understand that your CPA knows the code, that he has your best interest in mind, that he educates you to make sure that you don't make the same mistakes over and over, as Alex said, and that you can trust. And I will tell you that if you're paying for a discount accountant, you're getting what you pay for. And I can tell you from lots of experience from looking at other accountants' tax returns that, as Phil said, or as Alex said, not all accountants are created equal. I was a partner in a larger firm, and of course I realized how difficult the tax code is, and I knew that there were a lot of small business people out there like yourselves that wouldn't necessarily understand the code, and that's why I started my practice, because I knew there was a niche out there that there was a need for small business people. And I'm a small business person, and I enjoy working with small business people, and that's why I started my practice. There's seven of us in the firm. We're in Crafton, and we're very responsive, and hopefully we'll get to know you. So, taxes are easy, right? I love it when people come to me and they say, oh, my taxes are easy. I do it myself. I have one rental property. It's super easy. Well, I had a guy come to me and he has this situation. He's been doing it himself for 7 years. And I look at it and I'm like, did you take depreciation? He's like, what's depreciation? I said, you just missed out on 7 years of depreciation. Came up to be about $12,000. So luckily, I know the code, and I was able to go and make certain elections and allow him to get all those deductions and recoup that. He got back about $4,000. I charged him $800, so it was well worth it. But it's not always easy. I had another person, husband and wife, 2 W-2s. That's it. That's all they had, 2 W-2s. Easy return, right? Well, somehow he made it very difficult. He wrote off $5,100 of business expenses for his wife's car that she was reimbursed for and included in a separate check. And then he also took an IRA deduction for $9,000, which I have no idea how he came up with that number, but I asked him, are you doing an IRA this year? He said, no, I've never done an IRA. I'm like, well, you wrote one off on your tax return last year. So taxes aren't easy. You can make them very difficult. And in regards to real estate investors, whether you have 1 property or 10 properties, all these code sections that I'm going to tell you about apply to you. And 1, you don't have the time to read them all. 2, you're not going to understand them. And 3, you're not going to know how they interrelate to each other and how to utilize the different code sections to plan for your future. And that's why you need to know that you have a knowledgeable CPA and one that you can just trust and know that has your best interest in mind and he's looking at your items and you're getting the best tax return every time. And you have to pay him for it. So let's talk about Code Section 168. That's bonus depreciation. That's something that came out, there's been different levels of it, 50%, 100%. But that allows you to write off property with a life of 15 years or less, all in 1 year. And you can make elections now to do 100% or 50%, and you get those write-offs. But you can't just put it on repairs and say, oh, I want this to be bonus depreciation. You have to go through the steps and you have to capitalize it and you have to make elections, so on and so forth. And that coincides with something called 179 depreciation expense. And they work together. And your CPA has to understand your situation and whether or not you want it to apply to 168 versus 179, because 179 is limited to your income. So if you made $5,000 in a rental property and you bought a car and you want a 179 deduction, and it's, let's say you bought something for 10 grand, you can't take the whole 10 grand. You can only take 5 because it's limited to your income. However, if you take the bonus depreciation, you could take the whole $10,000 and you would end up with a negative $5,000 loss, and that can offset your other income and you get tax benefit. But let's say you didn't have any income that year and you take the whole bonus depreciation, you have a $5,000 loss. You just lost $5,000 of expenses that you could have utilized in the future against future income if you would have made the 179 election. So it's very complicated, and that's why I say you have to trust that your CPA is looking at that and asking you about what your future endeavors are, what your plans are. Are you buying other properties that you're going to be able to offset different expenses? Okay, there's something, Code Section 263A, de minimis expensing election. That allows people to write off any single item under $2,500, any expense, as long as it's listed out and you make an election, a physical sheet on your tax return that says, I'm making the Section 263A de minimis election. And that way, if you have a rental property and you make that election, instead of having to capitalize these items over 27 and a half years and deduct them, you can deduct them all in 1 year. But once again, it goes back to whether or not you want that. Okay, most real estate activities fall under Code Section 469, which is the passive activity rules. A lot of people think that their real estate business is a business. Well, in the eyes of the IRS, it's not. It's a passive activity. It's been that way since 1986, and then that had to do with a lot of people were investing in real estate to create losses to offset their other income. So a dentist makes $500,000 in his practice, and he goes and invests in real estate and wants to, gets a huge depreciation write-off, and he wants to write off $100,000. He can't do it because it's passive income or a passive loss. You can't offset passive losses against passive income. And a lot of people come to me and say, oh, I got these real estate losses. I'm going to be able to reduce my income this year. I'm like, no, you can't, because you can't offset these losses against this income. So you have to understand that. And a lot of people in here, I'm sure, know about like-kind exchanges, Section 1031. So if your CPA understands what your goals are, he can help you go and sell that property. You can't sell the property and then come to your CPA and say, I want to do a 1031 exchange and defer that gain into a new property. You have to tell your CPA, your attorney, before you do it, and you have to have all the paperwork done saying, I want to do this, and then you can defer that. And that goes into the new code, Section 1400Z, which is opportunity zones. And that's really big right now, but not a lot of people are taking advantage of it. And what that means is if you have a property and you had a property with a $50,000 gain and you don't want to pay tax on that gain, you could sell that property and roll that gain into another property and defer it until you sell that second property. And that's great. Well, the opportunity zone allows you to get rid of that tax forever. So if you took that property that had a $50,000 gain, bought another property in an opportunity zone, which is designated by the feds, and you hold that property for 10 years and sell that property, you would have no gain. You'd never pay tax on that $50,000 plus whatever gain you created in the new property.
You need to hold it for a certain amount of time?
Yes.
It has to be 10 years?
It phases in. It phases in 5, 7, 10 to get to the 100%.
What if it's an inherited property and there's 4 heirs to that property? Can you 1031 it in for 10 years and defer the taxes or not pay the taxes after the decade's up?
Well, first of all, if you inherited the property, you would end up with a step-up in basis, and you're probably better off selling it then because you're not going to pay any gain anyways.
What about
Okay.
the taxes that have to be paid on the estate?
Well, it depends on how big the estate is. Estate tax doesn't kick in until 11 million, and if it's
So 400,000.
yeah, then there's not going to be any estate tax. There's going to be an inheritance tax, but depending on who the heirs are, it could be 4.5%, 9%, 12%, 15%. But yeah, probably you probably can. Then there's rules for when you go to sell a property. And a lot of people think, oh, I sold a property, I'm going to get capital gains 15%. Well, in real estate, that's not the case. If you took depreciation, when you go sell a property at a gain, all that depreciation that you wrote off against your rental income gets taxed at 25%. So if your plan is to hold that property and sell it in a couple of years, you might not want to accelerate those depreciation expenses, because when you go sell the property, you're going to pay 25% versus 15%. So it's all about planning and knowing that your CPA understands the law and asks you the right questions. Now, we're here to talk about Section 199A, which is a new code section. They passed the law in December of 17, and it's called the Qualified Business Income Deduction. So we're going to talk about what is the QBI deduction, why was it created, what businesses qualify for it, because as I said, real estate isn't really considered a business. How do we get your real estate business to qualify for it? What real estate businesses won't qualify? And then how can we maximize this deduction?
What was that called again?
QBI, Qualified Business Income Deduction. Now, what that is it's a 20% deduction, and it's a very complicated calculation. Not so much for single people that make less than 162 or married people that make twice that. But what it allows you to do is take 20% off of your income and pay tax on the difference. So for example, if you made $20,000 on a rental property, you get a qualified business income deduction of $4,000. You would only pay tax on 16 of that rental income if you qualify. And that's what your CPA has to help you with, to understand how to qualify for that. Now, why did Congress create the qualified business income deduction? Well, they wanted to reduce the taxes. And as everybody knows, they reduced the corporate tax rate on C corporations from 35% down to 21%. They got a 14% deduction. And of course, that's why a lot of people are screaming about it. Because most businesses aren't C corporations. Most businesses are S corporations, small businesses, LLCs, pass-through entities, and they still get taxed at individual rates, which can be as high as 35%. So in order to give small business a break, they came up with this qualified business income deduction, which says you can take 20% off of your income and pay tax on that. And that's why they did that. Now, what is a qualified trader business? As I said, real estate has never really been considered a business. It's been an investment, a passive activity. Now, that started to change as more and more people got into flipping and holding real estate and doing it as a business. And I think the legislation and the IRS started to realize that. So I'm going to say, 2010, Obama created something called the net investment tax. He wanted to charge people that made over $250,000 an extra 3.8% on their investment income. Well, real estate was typically called investment, so you would have to pay an extra 3.8% on your rental income. Well, they made an exclusion of Code Section 1411, which allows you to not include your real estate income in there. And that would also apply to people that are called real estate professionals. Now, how do you get real estate professional designation? Alex is a real estate professional. He spends at least 750 hours a year on real estate activities, and over 50% of all his activities are in real estate activities. And that's how you do it. So all of you with full-time jobs probably wouldn't be able to say that you're a real estate professional.
You have to be licensed to be a real estate professional designation?
No, you just have to do rentals or construction or, well, property manager, you need to be a realtor, so not necessarily.
So what was it, what did you say the percentage was, 75% of your time?
No, 50% of your time, 750 hours.
50% times 750.
Yeah, you don't need to know that. So, but that's how you would be considered a real estate professional and fall under this qualified business income deduction. However, they created this law and they wanted it to apply to real estate people. However, when they wrote the law, imagine that, they didn't say in there that they wanted it to actually apply to real estate people. So we've been in limbo for over, I would say, passed in 17. We went all through 18 and didn't know whether we could have it applied to real estate people or not. And finally, they came out with a revenue procedure that said, okay, we haven't changed the law yet. However, there's a safe harbor. You can make a safe harbor election on your tax return under penalty of perjury that your real estate activities are qualified businesses. And you have to list the addresses and you have to sign it, and it has to be a form on your tax return. And I'm sure a lot of people haven't done that. I know Alex did. So that's how you can get your property to qualify under this safe harbor provision. So what is the safe harbor provision, and what do you have to do to meet those qualifications? Oh, I forgot my funny anecdote. Okay, so what does the IRS say a trade or business is? This is good. Okay, a trade or business is actually defined under Code Section 7701. Trade or business. The term trade or business includes the performance or the functions of a public office. The United States Supreme Court held that to be engaged in a trade or business, the taxpayer must be involved in the activity with continuity and regularity, and that the taxpayer's primary purpose for engaging in the activity must be for income or profit. A sporadic activity or hobby or an amusement does not qualify in deciding if an activity is a trade or business. The taxpayer should consider if he or she is devoted in full-time exertions so that activity on a regular, continuous, and substantial basis. Additionally, the United States Tax Court has held that some expenses, such as payments to a prostitute, are so inherently personal that they cannot be deducted as a business expense, even if it's related to that taxpayer's occupation. What occupation would a payment to a prostitute be a business? Okay?
They actually spelled that out.
Yeah. Also, the prostitute, she better report that income on her tax return. So, yeah, right? Okay. So, that's your tax code. So, now, they brought this code section out, this qualified business income deduction, and they specifically said some people cannot qualify. Attorneys, you don't get this deduction. Accountants, they don't get this deduction. Doctors, they don't get it. Athletes, financial services. However, they came out and said real estate brokers, agents, and property managers do. And that's how a lot of CPAs and tax professionals were able to make that leap to say that Congress's intent was for it to apply to real estate. And even though it wasn't in the regs, they did come out with this safe harbor, which may apply to you. Okay, sometimes you don't want your rental properties to be a business. For example, if you're a flipper, you don't want it to be business because that income will be subject to, one, ordinary income tax rates as opposed to capital gains rates. So that could be 35% versus 15%. Then on top of that, you get to pay self-employment tax, your Social Security and Medicare, which can be another 15%. And in Pennsylvania, if you're in business, you get to pay your local tax too, which could be upwards to 3% if you live in the city. So sometimes you don't want it to be business. Also, if your rental properties create losses, you're not going to benefit from a qualified business income deduction anyways. And if you do make that election, those losses get carried forward under this calculation. So if you have gains in the future that you want to be qualified business income, they'll be offset by these losses. So you want a CPA that's going to time exactly when you want to make that election. Because if you're just first starting out, you're probably going to have some losses. And you don't want those losses to carry over until you start making gains, and then you're not going to be able to utilize the qualified business income deduction. So it's very important to have that conversation with your CPA. Also, if you go and you sell the property, once again, you want to get capital gains rates. If you're a business, you're not going to get capital gains rates. Okay, you're going to have to pay ordinary income rates because you're treated as selling those properties are inventory, and you're selling inventory just like a store. So sometimes you don't want it to be a business. Okay, what real estate qualifies? Well, these don't. If you have a commercial building and hey, it's a business, commercial building, you're bringing in a lot of income, it doesn't qualify if you have a triple net lease. So if you do have triple net leases, you might want to go in and revise how you set up those leases in the future. Myself, I own rental property. I rent to my business. Well, I don't qualify, so now my rental property doesn't qualify because I rent it to myself, which is a specialty service business. So they don't qualify. C Corps, they don't get a deduction for this. So what does? In order for your property or properties to qualify for this deduction, you have to make this safe harbor election, and you have to say that you spend at least 250 hours a year on your properties. And I have hundreds of people that own real estate, and I know that a lot of them do the work themselves, and they spend hours on the real estate. I know Mark, he's been doing it for years. He probably spent more time doing real estate than he did at his real job. So if you work more than 250 hours per
1 hour a day?
per property, hold on, it gets better, per property, then you can qualify for this deduction. Now, what qualifies for the 250 hours? Advertising to rent or lease, negotiating and executing leases. I forgot to change the pages. Sorry, you have it all in front of you anyways. So, there, okay. Verifying information and applications, daily operations, maintenance, purchase of materials, supervision of employees and independent contractors. The best thing about this is you don't have to do it. You can hire someone else to do it, and that qualifies. So if you hire a contractor and they're spending 250 hours over there, you can make this election and get this 20% deduction.
How do they who tracks that?
You track it. That's the next one on the page, right at the top there. Okay, or number 3 there. You must maintain contemporaneous records, time reports, logs, similar documents. Okay, you have to do it, and it says contemporaneous. That means, like, if you get audited, you can't go back and do those logs. You're supposed to be doing it on a regular basis. Okay?
So nobody does this, right?
Well, it's never a problem until you get audited, so. And that's why I tell my clients, we can deduct anything you want, but if you get audited. Okay, so the important part, like I said, it's not just by the owner. It can be by other people. Now, what activities don't qualify? Financial or investment management. So if you're doing your accounting at home for it, it doesn't count towards that 250 hours. Financing, procuring of properties, going out and looking for properties, that doesn't count. Studying and reviewing financial statements and reports. Meeting with your accountant, that doesn't count. Planning, managing, or constructing long-term capital improvements. However, if you have a contractor doing it, it's good. Hours spent traveling to and from the property doesn't count. Now, seriously, if you got audited, how is an agent going to tell you that this qualifies or doesn't qualify? As long as you write it down and you can say, hey, I did this. They're not going to run through every line item on your sheet. Okay, how do we make this election? As I said, on your tax return, you have to list the properties and you have to sign it under penalty of perjury. Now, as I said, it has to be 250 hours per property. However, this is where the tax plan comes in. They allow you to aggregate properties. So if you have 10 properties, you could say on your tax return, I want to aggregate these 10 properties or these 5 properties. And that way it's 250 hours over all of those properties. Okay? And it can be very important because let's say you make, over all those properties, you make $50,000. That's a $10,000 deduction. That could save you $3,500 right there. So that's where you have to sit down with your CPA, and more importantly, you can't just aggregate any properties. They have to be like properties. For example, they have to have the same 50% ownership. And it just doesn't have to be properties. It can also be, if you're a real estate agent, that counts towards the 250 hours. So if you're a real estate agent and you also have rental properties, you can combine those two activities because they're pretty much the same thing. You're out looking at real estate, you're selling real estate, you're buying real estate. You could combine those and you could actually utilize that 20% deduction over all those activities. Now, the problem is let's say that you have one property that makes a lot of money, but as he said, in this case, he inherited it. So it's fully depreciated. And it generates, let me see, in my example, it generates $100,000 of rental income, but he doesn't have any basis because he inherited it. But he has another property that generates $20,000. He just bought it, paid $200,000 for it. His deduction would be limited to only $4,000 on that property. The other property that he made $100,000 on, he doesn't get any deduction on it because it's also limited by a percentage of the basis that you have into the property. Okay? Now that's only for certain people over over 162. But if he aggregated, he said, I want to put those two properties together, all of a sudden his $4,000 deduction just went up to $24,000 just because he aggregated those two properties. And I can tell you from experience, last year I spent, I'll say, an extra hour looking at Alex's properties and all the different activities that he had and understanding how each one worked together and whether they were related. And I was able to reduce his taxable income by at least $40,000 just by putting certain activities together.
Happy birthday to me.
And he didn't even know it. He didn't even know that. I've never even told him that. But the key is he trusts me. He knows that I'm looking at his tax return and I'm doing that for him. And I'm knowledgeable. So that's the key. You're not going to understand all this or know it, but you need to have a CPA that does. And if you're going to H&R Block or you're doing it yourself, you're not helping yourself at all. And I love it when people call me and say, oh, how much do you charge? I don't charge anything. I'm going to get you money back. I'm going to save you money. I'm an investment. And if you're paying some 70-year-old guy working out of his house, you're not getting the best benefit. So this stuff is very complicated, and you need CPA that can help you. Okay, and let me tell you a little bit about my firm. I came up with an acronym, CAKE. You can have your cake and eat it too with us. We're caring, accessible, knowledgeable, and experienced. I have 6 staff people. we do education every single day. When I read an article, when I review a return, I tell them exactly why we're doing something, why we shouldn't do something. They are, I'm not going to say they're as knowledgeable as I am, but they are very knowledgeable. And we specialize in real estate. We have hundreds of real estate clients, and we treat them all the same, and you're going to get the same attention. And the thing about real estate is it starts from day one. All those code sections that I just told you, they apply from day one. When a new person comes to us with a property they just bought, we take that settlement statement and we break it down and make sure that you could get the most deductions out of there. Most CPAs would just take that settlement statement, say, okay, X amount of dollars for land, X amount of dollars for building, depreciate over 27 and a half years. We take that settlement statement, we break it down between land, building, closing costs, loan costs, and then there's a bunch of expenses on there that you can write off all in the same year. So that's what we do. That's the difference between us and other firms. We will train you. We will let you understand that, hey, there's this new tax law, there's new tax deduction, like the de minimis rule. I'm going to tell you, you need to bring your work papers to me, and you need to break out the expenses below $2,500. Don't just give me something that says repairs 10 grand. You give me repairs 10 grand, I'm going to depreciate it over 27 and a half years. You give me an Excel spreadsheet with this was $500, this was $800, this was $1,200. I can expense all of it up to $2,500 if you want, if you need those deductions. I'm not going to do it if you don't need the deductions, though. So it's very labor intensive. It's not just punching numbers onto a paper. It's analyzing the different properties that you have and how each one can affect the other one, and the different code sections of the tax law, the expensing versus the bonus depreciation. Okay, we talked about that, and we know the code. My goal here was just to educate you how complicated taxes are, and you should know whether or not you have a good CPA or not. A lot of people tell me all the time, I'm not really sure if he's good or not. Well, if you're not sure, I think you know. So, okay, from that, I'm just going to open it to questions.
Okay. Now, I had to put a $10,000 roof on a house last year, and I just assumed that I could expense that. I mean, it's money I didn't put in my pocket.
First problem is you assumed.
I'm an engineer. You're lucky I didn't assume.
I have lots of engineers. I know.
So,
I know.
but I was told that I couldn't expense it, that I had to take it off a roof last, 20 years? So that's $500 a year that I'd get to deduct, but the IRS thinks I made $9,500 that year. Is that right?
It all depends. It all depends on the different elections you make. Depends on the type of property, commercial, residential. You can write off the roof that you tore off. Was it an extra roof? Was it just to repair a hole? There's so many different things that you have to go through to get to writing it all off. Now, could we probably get there? Probably, but you have to go through the steps.
Okay.
The big thing, though, goes back to what I was telling you. When you sell a property and you think you're going to get capital gains, but you have that depreciation recapture, and you end up paying 25% instead of 15%, something that we do is we're going to go through these properties and we're going to make sure we write off all those things that you've depreciated that are gone. So if you go in and you rehab a unit, we're going to write off all those old assets that were on there. Because if you don't, all the depreciation that you have on there, when you sell that property, you're going to pay 25% on all that accumulated depreciation as opposed to capital gains at 15%. So it's very complex.
Yeah, good morning. Appreciate your time. When you talk about building a team and an accountant being one of your team players, and you're talking about a bank, and you're mentioning deductions, you have to be careful with the two, because you can make $100,000, find so much to write off. Now you don't look pretty to the bank.
Absolutely. Absolutely, absolutely. That's one of the conversations we have with our clients. You know, what are you looking to do with this? Are you looking to get financing? Absolutely. Another question the gentleman had during the break was between LLCs and how to make that tax election. You know, a lot of people come to me and I say, oh, what type of entity? I'm an LLC. I'm like, okay, how are you taxed? And the election is done, there's different times that you can do it. And you can be, well, when Phil sets you up, we're going to talk about, do you want to be a partnership, taxed as a partnership or a corporation? If you're a single member LLC, you can just be a disregarded entity and just file a Schedule E or a Schedule C right on your tax return. You don't have to file a separate return. But you decide up front. Now, if you wanted to be an S corporation, and the reason you would want to be an S corporation is to save self-employment tax, like if you're flipping houses and you're going to be subject to self-employment tax, you'd want to be an S corp so that you won't be subject to self-employment tax. So you have until you file your first return to make that election. Really, it's supposed to be 75 days from the time you set it up, but the IRS code allows you to make a late election and file that with your tax return. But that's something you'd have to talk to your CPA about, so on and so forth. So there's lots of different time periods for elections. Now, something I did want to mention, Phil talked about how Pennsylvania treats a husband and wife as a single person. However, that's not the way it is with the tax code. If you have an LLC with you and your wife and you own one building, guess what? From a tax law standpoint, you are a partnership. You have to file a partnership return. You cannot file it just on your 1040. So, and I've seen that a lot lately. Questions?
When you speak of aggregated property, does it have to be in an LLC or S corp, or is there any difference as far as that goes?
There are, but you can combine different types of entities, yes.
And if you don't have an entity, are you able to do that?
Yes, you are. Mm-hmm. Now, what they say is once you make that election, you can add to that election, but you're not really supposed to remove properties from that election. Like, you can't change every year, okay? They want it to be a continuous thing. So
If you're hitting the 250 on some years that you're doing a lot of rehabbing and some years you're not.
That's where it's not clear as far as whether it's a all or nothing type of election, because that's exactly the example of when it wouldn't apply is if you're not meeting that, do I have to take the loss? Let's say you have a loss that year because you didn't pay attention to your properties. You didn't spend a lot of time in it, so you had losses. So do those losses qualify as QBI losses that you have to carry forward against other gains? That's open-ended right now. But I would think that the intent is to be regular.
We got time for one more question.
I'm one of those people who formed a land trust because there were no such things as LLC when I formed mine. And people tell me, oh, LLC is much better. But I haven't switched over to that because of all the transfer taxes. But from a tax point of view, would I be better to do that or no?
Well, there's no land trust tax return. I have seen those. They haven't. The way that I've seen people treat those is just disregarded. They don't even act like they exist. Like, I don't even know that these properties are owned in land trust if I didn't look at the settlement statement or they showed me the documents. In fact, the one guy that I know that does it, he says, here's the document, don't show anyone else. Don't show anyone else. So it's one of those situations that there's no clear-cut answer because it shouldn't really exist, I guess.
But we've been operating like that for 40 years.
Doesn't make it right.
It's worked so
Hey, everything works until the yet comes, right, Phil?
Thank you, Matt. Everybody, we're going to look at just some examples of, well, first of all, are there any wholesalers in the room? Okay, somebody asked me earlier, how do I get on these wholesaler lists? Maybe you see those people. Can you raise your hands again?
Got a bunch of deals.
There you go. There might be some that he sent me that we're going to look at.
Nice.
All right, this was one that was sent to me, and it was in Sheridan. Let's view some of the photos. It was a three-story. Let me make that a little bigger for you guys. That's a little better, right?
Yep.
Three-story brick Victorian, 5 beds, 2 full baths. So it was like, over 2 stories, right, where the third floor is. Sometimes it's finished and sometimes it's heated or unheated. The big old Pittsburgh house that you might run into. New roof, 2-car detached garage in back. Does anybody know anything about Sheridan and where this is located? This was on Merwin Avenue in Sheridan.
I sold a house on that street.
You saw this one?
I sold a house on that street.
Okay. So I own a house like next door, and I sold one next door to that. This is probably the worst part, one of the worst parts of the Sheridan area. And this is a dead end part of the street, so there's no way to turn around. It's just.
Where is Sheridan? Is that up the hill from Lawrenceville?
No, it's in between McKees Rocks and the West End. So I was interested. I went and looked at it. I said, okay, well, so here's what I do. This comes across my desk. What do I do? I'm not going to jump in my car and say I'm going to go look at it, because you'll waste hours and hours of time doing that. So you read the description. Tenant occupied, behind on rent. What does that tell you? Yeah. So don't count on that income if you do buy it, right? Radiant heat, no air conditioning, window AC. Assignment of contract, So let's view the photos. Then we'll look at the comps too, and we'll see what kind of oh, goodness gracious. Okay, these are the comps. Okay, you gotta love these. So remember, wholesalers they're trying to make money. They're going to try to substantiate their value and make the property seem like it's worth what you're going to pay for it. The price was $35,000. So this person's using comps in the area. So you're going to see the one on 1204 Tweed Street sold for $179,900. It was listed for $179,000, sold for $165,000. Okay. So what do I do if I don't know the market? See, I know that market really well, so I didn't have to go crazy and do any research. What was that, 1204 Tweed? I forget already. So this is the West Penn multi-list. This is what... Okay, so Tweed Street is, the first thing you want to do is you want to go to a map. If you don't know the area, you don't know the market, you need to get a general idea where this is located. So this is Tweed right here. Okay, Merwin is over in this way. Let's see, it's Glenmar, Zephyr, Merwin's right in here somewhere. Okay, this area right here is not as good as this area right here. And you see how close they are. But it's night and day. It really is. And then again, you might have an area of Merwin that's good and a part of Merwin that's not good. And this is a part of Merwin that's not very good. So to compare that value, if you're basing everything off of that and you're looking at this comp here, you're going to be in a world of trouble if you're basing your values off of that. Because it's probably maybe 120, okay? And this sale was 165. You're not going to, you're going to lose money. So you got to be really careful. Let's look at this property and just take a look at the rehab on it. And believe me, 165 is high for this area. So even that comp, that comparable, you just don't look at one situation. You have to look at maybe 6 or 7 recent sales. And if there's 6 or 7 recent sales at 165, then you have something to base it on. But if there's one sale at 165 and the rest are 130, 110, then you're gonna have to kind of eliminate that one that's sold for a super high price, eliminate the ones that sold for really low prices, and use that group to come up with your value. If you don't know the market, you're gonna have to do this.
It's also all brick.
Yeah, this is all brick. I think this one came with a double lot. Yes.
What happens if we don't have access to the West Penn multi-list?
I mean, you could probably Google this
Zillow?
stuff and, yeah, Zillow. I don't use Zillow that much, but I'm sure a lot of you guys do, right? If I pull up 1204 Tweed. So there, you pull up 1204 Tweed, and you could probably get a lot of information on here.
Yeah.
So the Zestimate is not something to really rely on either. It's a good gauge, but it's not going to, it can get you into trouble, okay?
What's the square footage of that compared to the subject? 1763, what was the?
So the square footage, so the question was, what was the square footage? That's another thing you got to look at too. You could have a 5-bedroom that's 1,700 square foot. You could have a 5-bedroom that's 3,500 square foot, right? So you need to know how to compare square footage. The best thing to do for that, and I don't know how accurate the county website is, but at least it's some basis on how many square foot this property is. Let's go to there. Anybody use the county website?
Yeah. Well, what was the square footage of the Merwin property that she had up there?
We'll check it out here. So 1,200 Tweed, the square footage is
Building information tab.
I do it a certain way. So I look at the image, and then I just look at the square footage, like 22 by 31, right? So it's about 700 square feet times 2, plus you have a 3rd floor. So you have to kind of add up the square footage in your head, what it is. So you get a general idea of the footprint here, and then you also want to look at the map and see, okay, this is a recent sale. What did that consist of? That consisted of a double lot. So that does add value, does it not? Okay. Plus you have an alleyway in the back. You have potential off-street parking or garage. All right, so let's pull up that property, which was 3024 Merwin. Okay. 3024 Merwin. 3024 Merwin. Okay. So Merwin it's sold for $15,000. The lady was asking $35,000. So I don't think this wholesaler, I don't think she ever sold it. I think somebody else purchased it without the wholesaler being involved. But if you look at the map on this one, so it's a very small lot. It did have a garage. And you're going to see, I'll zoom in on this, or zoom out. See how this road ends here? That's what I mean about it's just not a very appealing street, because you pull in here, then there's no place to turn around. You literally have to do like an 8-point turn to turn around and get out of there. This is not very appealing. Yeah, people park on the sidewalk. Jeremy, you know the street well. That's where Jeremy buys his crack. Good deals. Okay, so, yeah, let's look at the square footage. Okay, this is 22 by 33. It seems like a smaller house, doesn't it? 22 by 30, but according to this, it's about the same square footage. Am I wrong there?
1952.
22 by 31. I tell you what, just looking at that house, this looks like a bigger house than this one. It definitely is. That's what I mean. You can't rely on this data. It's a good gauge, but I know that's a bigger house over there.
How accurate do you find, like when you go to the building information tab, the square footage that's there, how
Yeah.
accurate does it correlate to the way that you determine square footage?
I don't know, let's try that. What do? You go on the
Go to
building?
information, and
Okay,
that's where the lot information is in the same place. See the living area, bottom right-hand corner of that box?
yeah, 1,900 square feet, right here.
Right, so how accurate is your math compared to that number?
That's Merwin, and what's this one here? 1985. I think this Tweed house is bigger. I think once you get up into the attic, as you're going to see from the picture, yeah, you're going to see it's a bigger house. That makes a huge impact on the value. So square footage, you're going to have to go see it and know the market and know the area. 1, 2, you're going to have to know the street. 3, you're going to have to know what part of the street is good. 4, you're going to have to know what part of that area is more valuable. So those ARVs that she was promoting, completely erroneous, completely could get you into trouble. And
What does ARV stand for?
ARV is after repair value.
We find that those numbers on the county website there
Yeah.
are not often accurate, very seldom, unless it's
Okay.
a house built after 1950.
Gotcha.
Those numbers become much more accurate. Anything below 1950,
Gotcha.
They're-
So
they're off.
you hear what he said, and I have to agree, is anything newer, maybe 1990, 1980, when they got building permits and so on and so forth, the information on the county website is probably a lot more accurate than on older homes.
they've
Okay.
been renovated a couple times sometimes, and it's very skewed.
Now, is that helpful to do what I just did?
Yes.
It saves you a lot of time. Once you get really good at it, you can zip and zang and yin and yang and get to where you need to get to assess whether you even want to go look at it.
What
Okay.
do you do in counties where they don't report?
I hate it because I'm not very good at using like Butler and Beaver County, but I don't, unfortunately I don't buy in those areas either a lot, you know. So let's see if we can pull up another one where I can pull up pictures of it. I'm sorry about that. Maybe just because it was so old. But yeah, I went and saw this home. Okay, so let's look at the description.
That's the one in Merwin you thought?
Yeah, so I went and saw this.
So you thought from what you're looking at now, that was worth a car trip out to see the house, is that right?
Yeah, when I looked at the pictures and I'm like, wow, I own one next door, and okay, it's worth a look. It's close, you know. And I was going to be in the area, so I'm like, okay, I'll go look at it.
What are you getting for rent on Merwin?
Oh, so what the question was, what are we getting for rent? The one we own on Merwin, we were getting about 800. It's a 3-bedroom.
3-bedroom.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to a different one then.
So is that something you looked at and you would have made a deal on, or maybe not?
Now, so when I got there, I wish I could pull up the pictures for you. There just was no value there. It was just, I would have offered maybe 10. So somebody paid 15 for it.
And was it because of the condition?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So did you estimate how much you would have had to put into it?
Yeah, as soon as I walked through it, I'm like, nah, this is not gonna work. It was a kitchen. So just real quick, like when I look at a property, kitchen is,
8,000?
I round up 10,000. And that can be 4,000, that can be 20,000, okay? It depends on the kitchen. Are you cutting out walls? Are you doing island? Are you doing super high-end appliances? 10,000 for what I do, which is like flips from 100,000 to 250, is a very fair number. So just doing some quick analysis, 10, I got 5 in a bathroom. Now I'm doing a bathroom now, right now it's 8,500 because we're making it wider and we're moving mechanicals, so it was 8,500. And I've done some bathrooms that are 4,000, okay? But just walking through it, I got kitchens 10, bathroom 5, figure about 2,000 for each room, right? So why do I say that? 2,000 in the living room with its paint, maybe a window, maybe the hardwood floors, maybe outlets, light fixtures. So you got a living room, a dining room, that's 4. You have a hallway and staircase. I count that as a room, that's 6. 3 bedrooms, that's another 6, that's 12. Then we had the attic, this is round up to about $15,000 to $20,000 in all the accessories in all the rooms. So say 20 plus the 10 for the kitchen plus the 5 for the bathroom, we're at the 35. right? And I haven't even touched the outside. I haven't touched the major mechanicals, the furnace, the sewer line. Throw on another 15 or 20,000 there. And at 30,000 or right, 35,000 plus 55 is 90. Plus I have what's called buy, hold, and sell cost, right? It costs to buy, costs to hold, costs to sell, another 20. I'm at 110,000. And it's worth 120 at best.
What are the 54, where did the 55 come from? That was all outside or?
55 was
Say, or-
sewer line, HVAC, brick repointing, gutters, just adds up and your wallet just gets strangled. It happens.
On the ones that you actually move forward on, what's your average renovation cost?
I would say for me, I don't do like higher end stuff. So my average reno cost is, it's hard to get out of a house for less than 50. You know, really, it just adds up, you know?
Is that including holding costs, or is that just with,
Just for rehab.
just rehab?
Yeah, here, let's look at one that I recently purchased from a wholesaler. Let's see.
Are these typically single family?
All these ones happen to be single family, yeah. Okay, here is one. This is one that you offered.
Sure.
Remember this one? This was yours, right? It was Ridge Point Circle?
Yes, that is.
So this was sent to me, and I knew this one was going to go quick. I think we contacted you and said, you know what, we'll buy it with all this stuff in it, because it was a hoarder situation more or less.
Ourselves.
Okay, and I don't know how many offers you had. You had multiple offers though.
About 25.
You had 25 offers. So, and did you end up getting full price or more then?
We got 92,000 and change for that.
92,000. This place probably, okay, it was a townhome. So it had to need 35,000.
It's a bidding war on that one.
A bidding war, and it probably needed 35. If it was a hoarder, you know they weren't taking care of their granite countertops and the ceramic tile floors. It needed a kitchen, it needed a bath, it needed a powder room, it needed carpet, paint, probably a furnace. It's 35,000. So do the math. 90, just round up to 95, add 35 to that. That's 130. You buy, hold, and sell costs of 20. That's 150. That place at best is worth 170 at best. So it's potentially a $20,000 profit. And that's not even getting into, does it need a sewer line? Which, you know, wholesalers, you're not doing any inspections.
Well, that was a HOA on that one. So they took care of all the outside of the building.
So
And
the
roof.
HOA took care of the roof. So these are all things you need to factor in. At 92, it probably still wasn't a bad deal, and it might have gone to someone who wants to keep it and rent.
That's exactly the situation.
So, because I sold one over there for a client, and it was insane what these guys paid, but it's a quality rental in a good market. You're not going to get rich on it, but you're going to get high quality tenants, and you're going to get good, above average appreciation in South Fayette School District. So it's still a solid investment.
So what's your typical net profit target on a flip? What's a good ballpark for us to consider?
It really depends on the risk, the amount of time and effort I need to put into it. If it's high risk, a lot of my time intensive, then I want to make $40,000 or $50,000, right? If it's something like this, where I can make 15 or 20, I'm okay with that, because there's very little risk. I know what the ARV is going to be. I mean, there's been 15 sales over there in the past 18 months, and they're all the same townhome. I know what it's going to sell for.
So you're willing to buy, rehab, and flip for 10% net?
It would depend on how many projects I have going on. It would depend on the upside and the downside. Let's say the market slumps, then I can hold on to it as a rental. I'm okay with that. So there's a lot of factors. If I don't have any projects going on, I'll work for less of a margin. Then if I have a lot of projects on, I don't need another project, then I'll just probably pass on it.
Thank you.
Can you look at the statistics that are on that page and see how close our team was to what you
Oh yes.
looked at?
So here's the statistics. These ones right here in the middle.
So we try to go a little conservative in margin and build in a margin of error.
Yeah, so your statistics were ARV potential 122 to 154. I think you were light. I think 122.
So that's why we had so many people bid on it.
Yeah, it probably 140 would be a move-in condition, 20-year-old decor townhome that was clean. Sells for 140 over there. But something really nice, updated, granite countertops, just new with the gray paints, and everybody's doing the same thing, white cabinets.
What about the rental potential?
165. The rental potential probably between 1150 on the very, very low end to maybe on the very, very high end 1400.
Because we kind of try to pick an average based off of your costs as an individual investor, because some people who run construction companies can make them really, really nice for a very good budget. Some people just want lipstick renovations, so we make that, we build that fudge factor in.
Oh yeah, you have 820 to 1170. Yeah, 820 is ridiculously low. 1170 is probably more closer to market average for that. Yeah.
So is this a website we have access to?
You can get put on a preferred buyers list.
Yeah, can they go to this pghcashlisting.com?
Yeah, you can go to pghcashlisting.com and register.
Great. That's more competition for me when he sends me a...
We have different levels of partnerships with people, so if you want first access for 24 hours, first look, you have to pay a premium for that, so we have a subscription service.
All right, let's see what else we got. We'll look at... We got time to do one that I purchased, and I'll show you that one. Sometimes, like when I've noticed when I get wholesaler inquiries or when something comes up on the MLS and it's in a good area, I sometimes I don't even bother opening it. I don't even bother looking at it because I've gone to maybe 4 or 5 different open houses for wholesalers on these really nice, good areas, Upper St. Clair, Scott Township. They're just inundated with people there, and folks are just going to pay a premium, and I can't pay a premium, you know. You can't afford to pay a premium. So I'm not saying don't look. I'm just saying just be careful and don't get too tied up with the area. And you know it's a great area, but you still got to. At the end of the day, you got to make money. So this one was on Kedzie Street in Sheridan. Now you have to know Sheridan Market. This is the better part of Sheridan. And I knew as soon as I saw this come up that I can make some money here. Most people are going to pass on it because it said Sheridan. So you need to know that market really well. That's why when we go over, we'll do this in a whole class where we're just going to go over and look at different properties and assess them picture by picture and street by street. We'll do a whole like 2 or 3 hours of that, which is really what helps you become good at assessing properties. But by knowing these areas, I was able to get this when somebody else passed on it, okay? But here I'll give you a little bit of the backdrop of this. Okay. So this one, I went over to see. It was 45,000. I said,
Where is this?
it was in Sheridan on Kedzie Street.
Sheridan again, okay.
Yeah.
What's the cross street there?
We'll look at it on the map in a second. So here's what the street view looks like. So if you don't know the area, this is what you want to see. You want to look at what's in the neighborhood, right?
Right, so that's a Google Street, I like that.
That's just the pictures he sent me.
Okay.
These are the pictures. So that looked decent. The house doesn't look too bad, right? You got a driveway here.
So do you, in these era houses, these are like pre-World War II houses, right?
Mm-hmm.
These are the ones with the basements that are not cement block based. You run into a lot of problems.
This one probably would be post WW2. Yeah, because you could see. Let's see what the picture of the block foundation. See, see this down here? That's regular block. So you're talking about like a sandstone foundation.
Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
the ones where you just get seepage through the.
Okay, so this one here, I'm just going through again, I saw the price that they wanted, 45. I said, that's a little high, but okay, let me go through it. So I'm just budgeting here for all new windows. So when I budget for windows, it's about $400 a window on average. Okay. So what do I see there? 4 windows, $1,600. I would put shutters on the outside of the windows. I would either side or fix that shake siding up top, right up here. A new gutter, maybe some pointing on the chimney. Just in that front facade, you know, you're looking at budget for maybe $5,000. That's painting the front porch, landscaping, getting rid of this post here or replacing it. Any sidewalk repairs, you have some repointing here. You have some gutters that need repaired or replaced. You have windows. Just say $5,000. That covers that whole front facade, right? Okay. And then this is that side of the house, which really didn't need much, so I'm just accounting for some windows. 1, 2, 3 windows. And this door, what we did was we just eliminated this screen door, got rid of it, and painted the side door. Because a really nice new side door is never going to really get you any money. But the nice front door will, and that's what I didn't account. That's $5,000. That included a new front door here. So I eliminated the screen door and we put a new front door on it. You know, a nicer door, like a $400, $450 door versus a $300 steel door.
Why did it cost you $5,000 for a front door?
No, $5,000 was everything.
Oh,
that whole front.
What kind of door is this, man?
I like front doors, you know. Yeah. Okay. And then we have the back portion of the house. We replaced this door, so I got rid of the screen door and we put a nice new rear door on there. And you know, we'll paint all this siding here. The garage was very nice. Basically, didn't need anything. Maybe a light fixture here or there. The garage door was in good shape. The inside was in good shape. Back of the house. Couple windows. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 windows. So say about $2,000 in windows. I'd say about $3,000 ish for the outside of the back of the house. So if you just budgeted about $10,000 for all the windows and the exterior, it probably just about covered my exterior cost. Give or take. These aren't exact numbers. These are just quick evaluations so I can make a decision.
Can you talk a little bit about your construction staff? Because I know the cost for labor and materials varies greatly depending on what you've got going on. Can you talk a little bit about what your setup is?
Yeah, well, my windows, I get from a window company. So my costs are what they are usually.
Sure. Wholesale cost.
They're about $400 a window, give or take. Sometimes a little less, sometimes a little more.
Are you using your own contractors? Are you hiring that out? How does that work?
Yeah, I'm trying to hire. I got asked this question earlier. It's much easier if you can hire a GC who can run it all, just because there's only so many hours in the day. That's what we were talking about that. So GC runs it all for you. They manage the project. They give you an estimate of, like I got an estimate on all this whole rehab, I think was $30,000. They do it all. Only thing I'm doing is I'm taking care of the hardwood floors. I'm taking care of, there's a structural foundation issue. I'm taking care of that. I'm taking care of a couple. So I think add another 10 to that. So as long as he stays on his number of 30-ish, I'm cool with it. You know, and that's the way I did it. I said, look, you get this done in 2 months. This is what I want done. These are the quality materials I want. This is the kitchen I want. I don't want crappy, cheap kitchen. I want nice dovetail drawers. I want soft close drawers. I want a little better quality. Not Sewickley quality, but I want I don't want the stuff you buy right from Home Depot on the shelves. I don't like that stuff where it's stapled together and like just spend the extra $800 on the kitchen and get just a little bit better finish, you know? So.
Now the roof does not look like it's in good shape. Is that
No, the roof's good. It's 5 to 10 years left on it, and I'm good with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I know a home inspector what they're going to pick, and so that's the other thing you need to get really good at is knowing what a home inspector is going to pick and choose and be an issue with. And that one, all day long, we're good there. But see up top here where the chimney is, we got some issues up there. See that? But that's all included in that bid that he gave me. Yes.
Do you have like a materials list for like, oh, this is my tier 1 property, like I'm buying it for like 50 grand and like I know that I need to put in this amount because of this neighborhood? Or are you like basically every single project that you're doing, you're kind of going through the house and being like, I basically could get this and this?
Yeah.
Does that make sense, the question?
the second option.
Okay.
I pretty much wing it, okay? I would definitely work more efficient and better and make more money and make everybody's life easier who worked for me if I had this written down, but it's all up in here. So, but I'm just going through the way I do it, so you can get a general idea, and you might do it differently. If you're more exact, more of an engineer type of focus, you're going to be able to keep your numbers tighter than I am.
Well, you're the guy sitting up and lecturing, so we should be listening to you, right?
It's okay. So we'll
Alex, if it was gonna need a roof, what would you budget for?
probably about 6 to 7. I tell you what, contract materials, labor have gone up so much in the past 5 years. It's unbelievable. What budget for roof? I said 6 to 7.
On something this size, what if it's twice that size? What if it has different pitches?
Yeah, twice that size. If it's steeper pitches, if it's 3 stories, that all costs money. So, I mean, you're going to have to start to get to know your numbers better. But I'm telling you, prices have just gone up a lot.
The bigger the ladder, the more the cost.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a hand over here.
It's not that. I'm a general contractor. My insurance on doing roofing alone is 44% on my workman's comp.
Yeah.
So I have to factor that in. I can't compete against them guys that bang roofs on for $250 a square. My material costs are $125 a square.
Yeah, that's why as an investor, you have to know your numbers, right? You can always get someone who can do it cheaper, but again, what are they using for nails? Are they using wood spikes? Are they using used shingles? You just don't know. So to get quality, even average quality, you're going to pay, and you have to budget for it. It's irrelevant what you pay. What's relevant is what you budget and then what your profit margin is, because it's all going to correlate to making a profit or not making a profit. Yes, sir.
A couple things that I really don't be hearing mentioned that I personally ran into is, one, knowing what your exit strategy is for the property and not over improving the property if you're looking to pull cash back out of that property and reinvest. Because you can over improve and not even be able to pull enough money back out of there because of the...
Yeah, no, absolutely. I do a whole session on that. We go through what I call your A, B, C, and D scenarios. A being perfect world, I make 35 grand and everything's good. D being I can't sell it, I'm renting it for $1,200 a month and I'm breaking even. Can I live with D? Yes? Okay, let's go, let's do it. If I can't live with D, like, I'm gonna lose $100 a month, I'm gonna have a piece of crap in that area for a rental, it's gonna get destroyed and I'm gonna have to put 20 into it to sell it again in 3 years, nah, then I'm not buying it.
Right. And another issue that I'm running into also is my property, I may improve it, but the surrounding properties are not, and a lot of insurance agencies are not picking up your rental properties because of the surrounding properties, the condition that they're in. So that's something to keep in mind also.
Absolutely. Yep, good point. Okay, let's go through some more pics here. That's not a good one, can't even see that. All right, front porch didn't really need much, just painting the front porch. I had to clean this all out. So I had to budget, remember I talked about $2,000 a room? Well, I had to drywall this ceiling, we had to redo the floors. And about $2,000 covers that room.
Would you prefer to have them blank canvassed, or would you prefer to do your own cleanouts?
I'd rather just have somebody else do everything. Okay, so that's more the living room.
By the way, that hoarding situation cost us $4,700 to clean out.
Wow, that was a $4,700 clean out, that townhome that we looked at. That's a lot.
You see how much stuff was in there?
I got to get you my guy's number.
Did you?
I'm gonna have to get you my guy's
We
number.
broker it out, but we have some pretty good guys. Who do you use?
What the hell's his name? Is it Clayton? No, you're Clayton. What is, it's like similar to your name. I'll send you his number. This guy, the guy that I use, he has his own garbage trucks. Is that?
We used him before.
That
His
you
name's
use?
Brian, I think, or yeah, he's got a crew with a garbage truck. Yeah. We
Yes.
used him a couple times.
He's very good. I mean, his prices are probably a little higher.
But he gets it done.
Man, it gets done and it gets done right.
Yeah.
And I'm all about getting things done quicker and,
Demolition too.
yes.
Do you, when you're looking at, you know, trying to decide between a couple of properties and how much you're gonna spend, how do you factor in how quickly or not quickly the neighborhood's appreciating or like some neighborhoods are crappy, but they're changing versus ones that are just crap and not changing or getting.
You asked me, how do I assess that? How do I evaluate?
How do you do your numbers? Do you consider that when you're doing your numbers for what you're gonna?
It's all in that A, B, C, D scenario, right? So let's say some properties you go into it and you are buying it for potential appreciation, right? Because nobody knew that Lawrenceville was going to be the next hot area. No, I don't care who you are. I just don't. Maybe 1 out of 1,000 investors thought, yeah, Lawrenceville's the next one, and then East Liberty's the next one, and then McKees Rocks is the next one, and Wilkinsburg is the next one. I don't know. And eventually they will be the next hot area. But how long are you going to live?
Right.
So at some point you have to have an exit strategy, not just to get rich, but to get wealthy and enjoy it. So that all factors into it. And how do I teach that? It's not something I can teach. You're just going to have to start learning the areas, knowing, watching.
See what's going on.
It's a lot of luck. It's a lot of creating your own luck. Working hard and buying enough properties, you're going to create some of your own luck. Yeah.
So I'm gonna die and go to heaven, and God's gonna look at, you know what, Braddock would have been the next.
Yeah, another couple more years. Rankin, that's next on the list. Okay, so this is we're almost done. We'll cut out in like 10 more minutes. This is the dining room. The dining room's nice size. Drywall, hardwood floors will refinish. The kitchen was very small. Just ridiculously
Is that on the back of the house?
unuseful. Yeah, it's the back left portion of the house. So what we did is I removed this wall right here, and then we came out into that dining room right here with an island, right? We'll come out and then back in with an island. And this wall's gone, and it's just way more nicer, right? Way more open. That's not a $6,000 kitchen. That's a $10,000 or $12,000 kitchen because you're moving things, you're putting, okay.
That
But
wall that you asked with, that was not a load bearing wall?
in this case, I don't believe it was. Okay, that was the kitchen. More of that wonderful kitchen. Okay, steps, just, hardwood, refinished. 3 bedrooms upstairs, real basic, plain Jane. Paint, new drywall, or not new drywall, paint, refinished the hardwood floors, all new light fixtures. And then the bathroom.
Is that electric baseboard or hot water?
That's hot water heat. So there was no air conditioning. Bathroom, we gutted the bathroom, just started over. Only thing I was concerned with was this right here. See how tight that is? I did not like that. We were able to move this over 1.5 inches. This is all open here, so it actually goes in about a foot or so. And I asked my contractor if he could use like a 2x3 here instead of 2x4. He kept giving me pushback because you can go with a shorter tub. Shorter tub's a little bit more money, but I didn't want to have to do that. So I just moved that toilet over 1 inch, and that makes a big deal. 1 inch really does make a big deal. So, yeah, my total costs, see, that would scare a lot of people. I know that that's a chimney and it's probably just flashing, so nothing major, so I wasn't concerned about that.
And there's just attic up there, not another bedroom or something.
Yeah, pulled on stairs to an attic. There's no insulation in the house, so the attic's completely bare of insulation. So again, you just have to factor all this in. Is that going to come up on a home inspection? Is the buyer going to take money away from that after they do their home inspection? I did not add it. If I needed to, I'd have somebody blow it in for $1,000 to negotiate after the home inspection. So when you buy something, you're just not only factoring what's it going to cost to replace a window, a door, but you're factoring in how much is it going to cost me to hold this? How much is it going to cost me after the home inspection? Am I going to have to insulate it? Am I going to have to do a sewer line? Am I going to have to do this? Am I going to have to do that? On this specific property, I asked the wholesaler, I said, look, I'll give you, I think it was $34,000 I'll give you 34 or 35,000, that's what it was. But I want to have a structural engineer look at the back wall because it was being pushed in, and I wanted to get a price. I said if it's over 3,000, I want to negotiate. And I want to have the sewer line inspected. And after it was all said and done, I said, look, the best I can give you is 28. And he's like, I appreciate it, but we can't give it to you for 28. We have a guy who's going to pay 30. And I respected that. That was nice of them to let me do the inspections, because normally wholesalers don't want to do that. That's why they're wholesalers. That's because they're selling wholesale. You're getting at a low price. You deal with what comes with it. The buyer that they were going to sell to about 3 days later was just jerking them around. They came back to me and I got it for 28. So.
We have a 72-hour inspection period on all of our properties.
Oh, that's nice. Most wholesalers don't allow that. So Clayton's a guy to get on his list for sure.
How much do you typically allot for sewer line, water line?
Okay, yeah, so the sewer line I had inspected. The house trap was pretty banged up. It's about $3,000, and I'm just hoping there's no major repairs after that.
Maybe $300 a foot for the sewer line, or $200 a foot?
To line, you can do a sewer liner now, and it's about $130 a foot, a sewer liner.
Do they work? I have heard about them. But
Yeah,
never had any.
they're all legit. They're accepted by the plumbing code.
Okay.
Sewer line,
So-
gas line, and water line are all permits, right? You have to pull permits for those?
Yes, you should. They can be super expensive. We've had $20,000 sewer lines, and we've had $7,000 or $8,000 sewer
That was
lines.
the tree lot with 200 feet to the house.
We've got sewer lines. They'll eat you up today. It wasn't an issue 5 years ago. It's an issue now because the buyers are inspecting the sewer lines. The municipalities are now inspecting the sewer lines. It's going to be it. And what's in the sewer?
Sewage.
Poop, and poop rolls downhill. And unfortunately, you are the sewage treatment plant when you're the flipper. So it really does it'll drain your profits. So you need to at least have a general idea what's up there. So on this particular one, I should make about 20,000. I didn't do much work. This was a fairly simple one. I'm okay with that. That's a fair margin for me.
That's a flip, not a keeper because of the
That's a
area?
flip. Yeah, because of the area. I'm maybe going to break even there, and in that area, I don't see this forced appreciation or this gentrification just yet, and I don't want to wait for it. So on that one, I'm good with just selling it. If I got that for maybe 10 or 12, right, and I could have shortened some of the, I could have maybe shortcutted some of the repairs, and I could been into it for maybe 50 all in, then maybe I would have kept it as a rental. It just depends. It depends on your finances, your appetite for having rentals, and
Lower if you're here.
How much were you all in on that?
probably after buy, hold, sell, everything, about 105. Yeah. Yes.
Do you sell your own properties, or do you have another agent in your brokerage?
I'll usually,
represent you?
I'll list them. Sometimes I'll have, like, some of my agents list them too. But sometimes I'll list them.
Do you set your own commission?
Yeah, I don't charge a commission for myself.
Okay.
I get a discount. But on something like that, I would offer 3% to the buyer's agent. If it was a $200,000 flip, I'd probably offer 2.5% to the buyer's agent.
If it was a what? I'm sorry.
If it was a more expensive listing, maybe 180 or more, I would offer 2.5%
So
to.
they get more commission.
Yeah, yeah. You gotta offer commission to a buyer's agent. They're valuable. I mean, putting things on the multi-list is going to get you the maximum exposure. Yeah, you're going to pay commission, but you're probably going to get more money. The net result is probably not going to be much different, and you don't have to deal with it.
Hi, I'm Phil Scolari Law Group, and I just finished presenting at Deacon Hoover Real Estate Seminar. Alex Deacon and his team are great for real estate investors, and they also have Mace Property Management, which is really great that we use a lot and recommend a lot for their property management needs.
Hi, my name is Mark Benoit, and I am a landlord and a private investor. So today's event was a great event. We had Alex Deacon, Matt Stevens, and Phil Scolari. If you're building a team, this is definitely the team that you want to be involved with. If you want to get business done, work with Alex and his team. He has a great real estate business, property management company. And Alex is a true entrepreneur. Today was a great event. I think everybody walked away here with some gold nuggets, and it'll give you an opportunity to take this information and start your action plan.